And then, so like they zip tie everybody, they throw our asses to the ground, they take everybody's car keys, they take everybody's phones, they put them all in a bag. And then shit starts to get weird. And like, they want to know what the fuck is in there. They're like, yo, let's get like, where's the fucking key to the safe? And I'm like, yeah, over here. Like, my face is like on the ground. They're like, who said that? You know, and I'm like, my face is like on the ground, like my cheeks on the floor. I got my hands behind my back. I'm like, yeah, it's on my keys.
Hi, it's Runchuks, and the following is my conversation with John Curry, the author of We Run Bad. It's a fun read. The story is set right after the housing market crash in the US. There are some really good anecdotes from the underground poker scene, some great characters. It's dark, it's funny, and, well, I really enjoyed it. I talked about private poker games in New York and Philly, and John shares quite a few crazy personal anecdotes about those. And of course, we talk about how those games are run, how they're organized, what kind of risks everybody is taking. And, well, you know what? We just went through so many topics. If you want, just check out the description for timestamps. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you do too. Oh, and this episode is marked explicit because of the language, and you've been warned. Enjoy. John, such a pleasure to have you here, and
thanks for having me on.
Really looking forward to this one because loved your book, loved your first book, loving the second book, which I'm still reading right now, and we're going to touch upon those a bit in this conversation. But first, I just want to ask you, how did you get into writing?
Well, I pretty much always wanted to be a writer ever since I was like a teenager and just like really pissed off. So pretty much, you know, you'll hear a lot of like anger and just sort of like, you know, like a lot of my stories are pretty dark, but they're also, I try to like balance that with humor. Just because, you know, like, I don't know, I guess like as far as influences go, I first started reading like Kurt Vonnegut when I was a kid, and now I can't stand Kurt Vonnegut. Actually, it's just like, I don't know why, I just can't stand his voice anymore. But, and then, you know, I wrote a book when I was 20. I finished it when I was like 22. I sent it out. Of course it got rejected, as did this one. And as is the new one right now, as we speak, currently being rejected. But the first one was fucking terrible. I mean, it was just like unreadable. And I didn't really know that until like I read it, like, you know, until I like got out of my 20s and like read it later. But I do remember the story, and the story was actually like pretty good. Like if I were to explain the story, you'd be like, oh, that sounds like I could read something like that. It's like kind of Catcher in the Rye sort of, you know? But it's like about like teen angst and like growing up in an orphanage and like drinking mouthwash. And they have like this club where they like drink mouthwash in the basement because it's the only thing to drink. And they're growing up in New Orleans, and then like his mom's a heroin addict and she fucking dies and all this shit. But it's like, you know, the execution of that book was fucking unreadable. I mean, embarrassing, right? So anyways, that's just kind of the way writing goes. Everybody thinks they're a genius. So when they sit down to actually write, and then you read it later, you know, very few people like their original writing. And if they do, they're probably extremely delusional, or they're just unbelievably talented, which doesn't happen very often. So, but I got into it when I was, I don't know, like 14. I just started writing like really fucking terrible poetry. And then when I was like 19, I tried to like, you know, write a novel, and I finished it when I was like 22, 23. It was bad. And then I ran a literary magazine, which I won't tell you which one it was because my name's on it, my real name. But I did that with a friend who was like my writing buddy, you know, growing up. And we did a literary magazine we published one for like 4 years. Obviously you don't really get into literary magazines to like make money. It's just like something to do. And through just like reading a lot of other people's writing, I just kind of, you know, I just sort of developed a little bit of like peer review, I guess, you know, just kind of like when you read a lot of other people's like up and coming stuff, you'll find like little pieces. Most of it's god awful, right? But some of it's like, you know, some of it's like surprisingly good. And like some other things, you'll notice that there's like just a few good parts in it that's will also surprise you, but you can't really publish those because as a whole piece, it doesn't really work.
Mm-hmm.
So, and just like growing up, like getting older, I mean, you become more adult and more grounded. You have less of an inflated sense of self when you're out of your 20s. So all of those things help. And then basically, so as far as writing, so in 2008, late 2008, I lost my job, and I had a friend who got me into game, and I started working. So I ran my own in Philly for a number of years, and then the casinos came to town, and then Philly was over, and then through some friends and connections, like I got into one in New York. And then I was basically just like working there for a long time. And like New York and like Philly ended kind of badly. Like I got robbed at gunpoint, and I didn't really make a whole lot of money because I paid everybody back who like lost. And then like a year later, the casinos came to town. And when that happens, your game is done. So, because like, why the fuck would you pay like, can I swear here? Is that all right? We're all adults. It's like it'll allow me my full range of expression.
Yeah, I think what, because like I'm obviously gonna have to put explicit mark on the podcast, so we won't be able to. I don't know what it limits us to do. I don't care, because I think with you, if people listen and we don't swear in this conversation,
it's going to be
they
so
might
inauthentic.
get a different idea about your book, and some people might just their socks gonna fall off when they start reading it, because it's not for the easily offended, I think. So
yeah.
So
I mean, definitely. I mean,
express yourself freely.
Okay. So anyways, what were we talking about? So like the recession.
So yeah, the casinos came in town, and like, so why would you pay the crazy rake?
Why would you pay like an inflated rake, and also like like God only knows what can happen in there any given night, right? You're not protected. You're not protected from the police. You're not protected from anybody who wants to rob the joint. So it's just like like the first casino that opened was in Chester. Okay. And I was in Old City, which is kind of like it's like basically Center City, but on the east side of Philadelphia. And so they opened a casino in this area called Chester, which is like where the state penitentiary is. And it's like literally the casino is like right outside the state penitentiary. You can like see the razor wire from the parking lot. Okay. So this is not like a great place to go. Furthermore, it's like a 30-minute drive to get to Chester, right? Now, Atlantic City from Philadelphia is only an hour's drive, right? So like, there's not that much difference. Like if you're going to like drive 30 minutes, like, driving an extra 30 minutes, for me anyway, doesn't really seem like, like it should change much, but like we were pretty much, we had our business cut in half, like overnight as soon as Chester opened. Right. Mm-hmm. And, that's Harrah's. They already had a casino there, but it was all slots and horses. But, and then like later, Sugar House opened and Parks. And I think they're building a new one actually, in South Philly near the where the stadiums are. So, where were we going with this? I'm trying to think. So yeah, so basically, so I did that, and then like I went home to like my hometown because like it was just kind of a mess. Like my girlfriend broke up with me at that point. Like I just didn't have anything to do. We were still like deep into the recession at that point. There were no jobs. So like I went home, and my dad like got me a job at like the factory he used to work in. And I did that for like 48 hours. And I'm like, fuck this. I'm going to New York.
Okay.
So I just was like, I mean, like I'm from like a really bad, like decrepit post-industrial shit town pretty much. And like coming back to that was just like, oh God, like in the middle of the recession too. So anyways, I had some friends, like I knew a guy who was running, a friend who was running a game there. And he was just like, yeah, I just had something open up, or I'm going to, because this guy's pissing me off. He's like one of his dealers. And then I moved to New York, and then I slept on a fucking couch for like a year and a half. Because like the thing about New York is that like you cannot get an apartment unless you make like the rent standards are 40x, right? So if it's $2,000, you have to make, so if your apartment's $2,000, you're going to make $80,000 net on paper. Right. So like, obviously, like I don't have a real job. I hadn't had a job in a number of years because I was like running a fucking game. Right. So I have like no history, like work history or tax documents that like show that I have like any significant amount of money. So like my friend was running this one, and like he just let me like stay there, and I just like slept in the card room for like a year and a half. It was a pretty like, if you're wondering like where the darkness comes from the novel, I mean, if you're like living in those conditions for that long, it'll bring you there,
Yeah, I can imagine.
So, and later things got better, and then So basically, like the way I kind of look at like New York games is that like, as far as I'm concerned, like in terms of like recent history, there's like 3 generations to talk about, right? There's like 3 generations. Like there's the first generation I would consider to be like the old school underground games before everybody knew poker, like this era that like Skalansky talks about, right? Which is like everything that like Rounders is based off of. Like everybody who knows Rounders knows there's sort of like some, like a little bit, I don't want to say inauthenticity to it, but it's like just the logistics of like how the games are run and like what people are doing and how they're betting. It's like not real, right? Like by our standards, right? Just because like we know the rules of like Hold'em and like these things, but like, in the guy's defense, like I would say like, who actually really knows like what games looked like before 2004? Like there might've been all kinds of crazy shit that's like, that we think is like standards, and we're like checking out the story and we're just like, oh, that's not true. That's not how things actually run. But back then, maybe they did, like who the hell knows? It was before like anybody knew anything about poker, like just like when Skalansky talks about like, this, I guess like his era was like the 70s and 80s pretty much.
Yeah,
so that's like what I consider
still playing. Well, I mean, he's still played for like a super long time. It's been around those games as well for a long time. But the time that he was talking the most in his book and in the interview that we had was the 70s, 80s, and all the crap that was going on there with rigged games and colluding and whatnot.
Right. So I would consider that like the first generation of like New York underground games, like the kind of shit that you see in Rounders. Right. And then the second generation is like 2004 through 2006. That's when like Hold'em started blowing up. Everybody all of a sudden was playing Hold'em in the casinos. Right. Like the Taj was just like a madhouse, like every night. And in New York, they had places like PlayStation. I don't know if you've ever heard of these places, but they had PlayStation, they had the Diamond Club, and like some of these places would rent out like 3 or 4 stories of an office building, and they would just have like literally like 40 tables. And so that was going on back then when the poker craze, everybody started playing on, everybody was playing on Poker Stars, et cetera, in the US. And then a guy got shot. Right. Some guys tried to rob a game. The guy got like nervous or freaked out or something. And he accidentally shot, I don't know if it was an accident for sure, but he shot some like citizen in the belly with a shotgun. Right. And the guy died. So as soon as that happened, it was like, the police were all over it. There was like I guess the guy was like pretty well known. He was like a professor or something like that. I don't remember exactly the details of his life, but as a result of that, they like shut all the games down and they like arrested a bunch of people, because they had to make a big show of it to show that like, this was being dealt with. And then, so like my generation would be the third generation, right? Which is basically like, so all of the games after that, there were no like huge like operations. Like you had like places that had like 3 tables max and like basically a lot of one table games, which is like the one that I was at, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of those still. And I would say that based on what I know, I still live in New York. And I would say that based on what I know about, you know, like my friends who are still involved and whatnot, that there will be a new generation that'll be like the post-COVID generation, because the reality is, like, as degen as people are, you know, nobody really wants to like sit around like a bunch of people shoulder to shoulder, you know, like coughing on chips and shit. You know, during the COVID. So like, I know a lot of games have like shut down because of that, just because there's no demand. And a lot of people left New York, like a lot of people, especially during the lockdown. So like there's this freeway or expressway called the BQE, the Brooklyn Queens Expressway. And I basically, like, if you looked at it during the lockdown, like it's always jam packed, right? Mm-hmm. If you looked at it on the lockdown on any given night, it could be like 10 minutes without a car going through it. It was so weird. So, and a lot of people, like a lot of these rich fucks who live in New York, love you guys. They moved to, they went to the Hamptons. They just fucked off to the Hamptons. You know, there's plenty of space out there. They had like restaurants still going or something. I don't know. And like, so, and just a lot of people just left for good and just kind of like went to their, you know, Poconos vacations home. They went to the Hamptons. They went to like, you know, they went home to New Jersey with their parents. And that just like really crippled demand for games. Also, just the fact that like, you know, these games are like pretty loosely run as far as like regulations are concerned. So it's not like they're going to like really look out for your health. It's not like they're taking like the operators are like taking, you know, cues from the health commissioner and going through like the necessary protocols to protect everybody, you know, like from getting the COVID. So like, so a lot of games shut down. And just because there was no demand, they just kind of went out of business, just like a real business would, like a real service-based business would, like a restaurant. And I think that the new generation, which I will not be part of because I'm done with this shit, is will be like, you know, the post-COVID generation. So I think that's kind of like a little history of, as far as I know of it, because like I wasn't around for even the second generation, but what I kind of get you know, from what I hear from many years of just people talking is that that's kind of how it went down. But I was definitely part of like the third one, which was like the noodle one, where it's just like all these big games just kind of like broke off into like many different operators and just like people running like, you know, in apartment buildings and in like little commercial spaces, little like event spaces and whatnot. And that's pretty much just because like you couldn't run a big operation without it getting busted by Vice, just because it would just eventually be like there was just too much traffic, you know, like supposedly in the second generation, I guess like the cops were like kind of in on it, you know, so it wasn't like a big deal and everybody was like making money and nobody really cared. And it was relatively safe until some guy got shot. And then it was like, party's over, you know, and they couldn't really be involved with it anymore. So.
Right. How did you start running your first game in Philly?
So Philly. So I lost my job, right? And like, if you read that story, so like the first story that I wrote for the new collection that I sent you, Novus Ordo Seclorum, right? That one was actually part of the original book, but my editor was like, I mean, that's a pretty long story, right? It's like 30,000 words or something ridiculous like that for like a short story. And my editor was like, it's like, this is pretty good. He's like, but the thing is that like, it's super unbalanced. Like you have this story, it's basically like half of the book is a backstory. Like you can't have that. And then just like the rest of it's like, you know, you go through like 4 years of like, you know, poker stuff within like, you know, 20,000 words. It's like, it's, it's like just the amount of time that it takes to read the first part of that doesn't really balance with the rest of the book. So anyways, so that first story where he like gets, he has like a job and he gets fired, and there's this whole gun incident, which is like, whatever. And then that part is actually like pretty true.
Yeah,
so
I'm pretty sure. Obviously, people haven't read it yet.
Yeah.
A lot of people are probably thinking a gun incident
It's like,
and whatever.
Excuse me, wait, back up, buddy.
Are you just gonna gloss over it?
Okay,
I like
so basically
how you described the whole purchase of the gun and that whole thing, which is
yeah. So all right, so I'll just go into like a little backstory about what a fucking idiot I was in my 20s. Okay. Which, is reflected in my writing back then. So basically, what happened? So I graduated college. I studied neuroscience. I got a job at a lab. Okay. And in this lab, I was just like, it was just like a regular lab job. It was actually like way too much work for what they were paying me, but whatever. Mm-hmm. I was young, and, that's how we do in America. We exploit the fuck out of people, especially the young right out of college. And basically what happened was this was like during the real estate boom, and I was like renting an apartment, and I had a girlfriend. We were together for a little while, and I was like, I'm wondering if I should buy a house, right? And so, and this is like when everybody's talking about real estate in 2007. Like, This is like the height of the bubble, right? So I'm like, yeah, maybe I should do this too. And I'll just buy a shitty house. I'll fix it up while I'm like, because my plan was to work at the lab, right? And then like for like 4 years, get like on a study, and then do a graduate thing, go to graduate school. And then, so basically I'm in this lab, I buy a house. The house is like $100,000, right? It's worth like 30. So, and like, if you're in Philly and you buy a house that's actually worth like $30,000, you're not in a good neighborhood. Okay. But like, I didn't fucking know. I'm like 27. I'm just like, hey, well, I'll just buy any house. Like, I can afford this one because I make like $23,000, So like, I go to this like place that my girlfriend knows these two guys who run this fucking they're literally running a mortgage company out of like a shell of a house. Like, I don't know if they were like trying to flip this later, but they, for whatever reason, they're in this like house that does not look like anybody's office, right? Like, super unprofessional. Like, these guys are like in sweatpants, and they have like no equipment except like a fucking printer, right? And like, these are the guys who get me my variable rate mortgage. I don't know what the fuck variable rate was. I was just like, yeah, man, I want the house. Let's go, And so I get the house. I move into this really terrible neighborhood, like pretty fucking dangerous. And like, the neighbors decidedly do not like me there because I'm just like some like fucking snot-nosed hipster kid who works at a college, right? And they're like, who the fuck is this? And then like, so one day they have like a block party, right? And I'm like locked down in the house. I can't go anywhere. Right? I can't get it. I like, if I leave this place, I'm gonna get fucking murdered, right? So like, and just in the middle of the party, they start shooting my windows with a BB gun, right? So I'm just like, so I call the cops. The cops come and arrest this kid. And then they didn't know it was me who called the cops, which they should have. I mean, they were shooting my fucking windows, right? And then like, they get a thing in the mail a few weeks later, because I'm just like, I'm suing these fucking people, like, for shooting my fucking windows. Like, I'm not paying for this shit. Like, right. It's like, it's my business model to like actually flip this house, right? So they just cost me like $1,000 or whatever, right? So I like take him to civil court, and she gets a fucking notice in the mail. And then like, all of a sudden she's like, you motherfucker, like she's pissed off, even though like she should have known, like, I called the cops on the kid who like shot my windows out. And this is her, like, she's like the aunt or the mother or whoever the fuck she is. Right. And like, so all of a sudden she comes over and she's like, you're fucking dead. Like, we're gonna fucking kill you. And I was like, you know, and I'm like, gulp, you know, like so like, I don't remember if I reported it to the police or not, but I knew that like they wouldn't really do much anyway. So like I went out and I got a gun, right, to protect myself, and I got a fucking permit to carry a gun. So in Philadelphia, which is like a major American city, right, like you can walk around with a fucking gun, like if you get a permit, right, which is
and
crazy.
It's a concealed carry as well. It's not
concealed carry. You can't walk around with it with it out. No. So like I get this fucking, you know, permit, and I'm like, you know, I'm like this skinny fucking 23-year-old hipster kid, and I'm like getting on my fixed gear bicycle with a fucking 357 Magnum strapped to my ass, right? And then I go to the lab, I unload it every day, right? I put it in my bag. I got my own little office area. It's actually a pretty nice place. And then, you know, I just, at the end of the day, I put it back on, and then I ride home. Nothing ended up happening. She was full of shit, but like, I didn't know that. You know, she was like, she had all this like specific information she was telling me. She's like, my brother's getting out of jail soon. He's going to fucking kill you. I was like, oh, fuck. Right. So like, I just wanted to be prepared. I wasn't like really afraid of her, but like, you know, I didn't want like somebody just like coming up on me who I didn't know, who I couldn't identify, and just like surprising me and like killing me. And I'm like stuck in this house, you know? So like, and I'm starting to wonder, I'm just like, maybe this was kind of a bad idea. Buying this fucking piece of property at the age of 23 and not knowing a goddamn thing about the real estate market or anything. So this is what happens. The market crashes, right? Market crashes. I like get my money out of my 401k because like the university gave me like a match program. So I cashed it all out, and I probably like broke even because like the market went down like half that one day. And I think it was like October 10th or something like that. I don't remember exactly. Mm-hmm. But so what happens is, and this is just like a coincidence, like I think like 2 or 3 days later, you know, like I think it was like I don't remember what day it was, but we all decided to like go out. And you don't really, back then at least, the law was like, you don't ever want to have a drop of alcohol in your system and have a gun on you. Mm-hmm. Because if something happens and you need to use it, it's not going to look good when they talk string you. Right. So, and I guess that's not the case now. Like as the recent laws, like it doesn't fucking matter. Like you could be drunk as fuck. Have a gun. No big deal. But back then I believe that I don't even know if I like looked up the law, but I have a friend who's like really into guns, and he like told me that shit. So I was just like, okay, I won't do it. So again, I was a fucking idiot back then, so I probably didn't look it up. So anyways, so what happened? Okay. So like 3 days later, so I leave my gun in my office, right, in my bag. Mm-hmm. And then I come in the next morning and there's 2 detectives in my office. And they're like, does this belong to you, sir? I was like, yep. And turns out like the janitor in the place at night, like he said he saw my bag open, but I don't think that was true. I think he was like looking around. I think he was like snooping around and shit. Anyways, doesn't matter. I brought a gun into a fucking like university like based lab. It's probably wasn't allowed to do that, even though it was legal. You know, they probably have their own bylaws against firearms on campus, which they obviously do. So anyways, I go through this whole process of like, you know, I got to go talk to the fucking administrator. My boss is obviously, you're a fucking idiot, bro. Like, what are you doing? Are you fucking serious? Like, we're in the middle, you know, like the guy who ran the lab. Mm-hmm. And then, so I go through the whole process of being fired, and they're like, look, the economy is really fucked up. We're not going to contest the gun thing. Like, just file for unemployment. You'll get unemployment. It's fine. Right. So I do that. And then, and then like basically a few weeks later, a friend of mine was just like, so we all used to play poker together, like a 25 cent, 50 cent game, because none of us had any money. And he was like, hey man, maybe we should like, he's thinking about going to law school. Right. And like all of a sudden, like the economy crashes and like he's going and he's got a few dollars saved up. And he's like, what if we just like, it's like, I'm going to law school and like, I got to quit my job. He's like, maybe to make some extra money. He's like, I'll give you some money to like run a poker game, like a 1-2 game. Because we've been to a few places before, right? We knew they made money, like whatever. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. Because again, I'm a fucking moron. Like, I don't know anything about like games. Like, I don't know anything about underground card games. I don't know anything, like literally nothing, right? It was just like, but yeah, look, but like we have a home game. So of course I can just run a home game and like charge people for it, right? So we do that. We rent like a loft in Old City. And then, I find this guy that I play it at this other game. And I know he only works there like a little bit. He plays a lot. And I like recruit him. I was like, hey, do you want to like come work for me? Cause like, I don't really know how to deal. And he's like, yeah, I'll do it. And that's Harris. Right. Mm-hmm. And, so Harris was like one of my first, friends / people who was like doing this with me. And then the guy who gave me the money, like he wasn't really involved, right? He just like went to law school and he wanted to like make some extra cash. So he like gave me his money to like create passive income for him while he was in law school, right? And he just thought like, well, you just got fired for having a gun at your job. So you're probably not, your prospects don't look too good. So maybe I can get you to like run this game for me, right? So I do. Because like, what the fuck else am I going to do, right? I mean, I'm getting unemployment, but it's not very much money. So anyways, we do that. And then I realized, now that I've like bought all the shit, I bought all the table, the chairs, the fucking mini kegerator, right? And I'm like, where are the players at? Right? Because like, how, like, so we have these few people that are like our friends and they're playing like 25, 50 cent with us. And I'm like, hey, you guys want to come do like a real poker game? And like, of course, none of them did. So what I did was I went out to some other games and I found like other games where like, I found this one dude who was running this other game in Philly. And this guy was like a stone cold hustler, right? He's this Korean dude. And like, I mean, he had done like New York City sales jobs and like cold calling type jobs and shit like that. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what his story was like completely, but he was like laying low in Philadelphia. Okay. So like I go to his game a bunch and like, he's in like this really fucked up neighborhood, like almost worse than the one my house was at, and he's like running a game there. Right. And this is South Philly. So like, South Philly, like there's some like Italian type people there, you know what I mean? So like probably not a good idea to like run a game without like in a neighborhood, like a really tight knit neighborhood. But and then again, he was kind of like on the outskirts of like where it wasn't so good. So he was probably fine. But anyways, so I was like, hey, listen, you got a real shit box of a fucking operation here. I mean, like but he had players. He somehow convinced people to come all the way to this shit area to like play cards. And like, I knew that he was like, he could do that. Right. Mm-hmm. So I just started playing in his game and I was like, hey, listen, I showed him some pictures. I was like, I have this place. I was like, why don't we move your operation over here? Because it's actually in like a good area. Right. Mm-hmm. And he's like, okay. And we like partnered up and then like he disappeared. He didn't really want to work. So he went and did his own thing and I never really saw him again after so many years. I just haven't really kept in touch with him, but anyways, so basically, like that's how it all started. Like I just jumped in blindly as always, didn't do any research. And then like, and then later I found like how to find my own players. And so if anybody out there like ever wants to like, run their own home game or whatever, which I don't really recommend that you do, but like, the way we used to do it was like the best way to do it. Cause like these days, the methods of finding players don't really work anymore. Like I used to use Craigslist a lot back in the day. And now Craigslist, like you're just going to get raped by some dude, if you use Craigslist, like it's just not like a thing.
That's what happens. I don't know. We don't use Craigslist here in Europe.
I'm just joking. It's like like these days it's all scams and like people who will like meet up to rob you and shit. It's just like a completely illegitimate way of like finding people. So we used to use Craigslist a lot, and that worked. And then so I like slowly built a list, and then later like we found out that like Facebook ads worked really well, but like now you can't do that either. So
it'd be pretty funny to run a Facebook ad for a somewhat sketchy legality of a private.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as long as you have a website, they don't really give a shit. It's pretty funny. But they do now. Like they cracked down on it. But like for years, like they didn't. Nobody was really onto it. So what was the
ad? Like, do you want to play poker in a?
No, it was just like you would just make like a website, you know, like on fucking what was it back then, like WordPress, and you just make it look like a professional, like, you know, like kind of like casino looking website. And like, you would just say like 1-2 in like this neighborhood. Right. And then people would fill out a form and you would like contact them. And then, you know, you would like ask them the necessary questions to like make sure they're not like crazy or they're law enforcement. And then they would just, for some reason, they would show up hoping that there was a poker game and not someone to murder them. You know, people's confidence in these sorts of things are just mind boggling. So anyway, but these days, I don't know. I honestly don't know how you would do it because like Facebook's been cracking down and Craigslist is no longer a thing. And then, but so like the one way that you can do it is like to get it started. If you don't have like a list of people, right, is like you hire 2 dealers and you tell the dealers, you know, you go to like some other game. You don't want to like step on other people's toes. You don't know who's running that game, right? You don't want to like just scalp their people, right? But like maybe there's someone who you do know who like was only working part-time or something like that or whatever, right? And they're okay with it. Or if you're friends with somebody, you're like chatty with one of them, whatever your method is. But again, I wouldn't recommend doing any of this shit because it's probably pretty dangerous. But like the one way you could do it is just like, and this also helped me, is that I would just hire dealers from other games or who weren't working for other games anymore. Or you put out an ad on Craigslist, right, for like a dealer, and you say like, hey, listen, you're a dealer, like you have your, like most of them have contact lists, right? And then you say like, if you want to deal here, you got to bring like at least 2 people. And then like, if you get 2 of those guys, you got 4 people. And then, you know, if you get 4 of your own, then you've got almost a full ring and you can build it that way. And the rest is all just word of mouth. Right. So, yeah. So basically like, I just got into it because the economy crashed and I was an idiot and, you know, no prospects. And, you know, that's pretty much the only reason. And, you know, obviously I'd played a lot too. So I was just like, oh yeah, this might be cool. You know, I was like into it, like during like the big boom, and I was never any good. And I still am not. So you won't learn much about, what's that?
I suppose you played in your own game as well, right? Just to fill in the seat.
Oh yeah. So here's the thing. So like one thing that's pretty funny about like people who work in games, right? Like I would say like 90% of the people who work in games, none of them make any money because it's boring work. You're there like 14 hours a day or whatever it is. Like, you know, because if the game goes late, like on the weekends, you could be there for like 24 hours straight hours. Right. And then like almost everybody works for free. And a lot of these, a lot of the ways you get into a game, a lot of people, right, is they go to a game, they play there a lot, they get stuck their balls, they go on the sheet, and then they got no way to pay it back. So they get hired as a dealer.
Right.
And that's a lot of the ways, like, you know, so a lot of these, you know, and like I've known like most of the people I worked with like didn't make very much money, including myself. I had like my stint of that behavior as well. Cause like I said, I'm no good. And I did this a lot. And like you just there many, many hours. And like, it's funny, you'll be there for like 8 hours and you're like holding steady. You're like, all right, made like, you know, $30 an hour or whatever it is. And then you're just like hour 12, you're like, all right, fuck it, I'm getting in.
Right.
Like if you're flooring the game specifically. Obviously, if you're dealing, you're just kind of dealing. But like the floor is like a really boring job. And like a lot of people just fucking jump in eventually. They're just like, it's just so boring. And then, like one of the rules of like playing cards is that you probably shouldn't be playing cards because you're bored, right?
Yeah.
Because you're just looking for action at that point. So, I mean, I know that much at least. So, yeah. So I got into, after Philly, I went home for a minute, like literally a minute, and left. And then for New York, and I worked for some guy that I knew. I just knew a lot of people at that point. And he hired me, and he was like a pretty good friend. And I was like, listen, I got no place to stay. He's like, dude, you can just stay here. He's like, why don't you, he's like, tell you what, I'll let you stay here. Just clean the place for us, like every night. Like, so I was like, all right, that's fine. And like, so, cause he like was paying somebody to do that. Right. So he's like, since it's your home, he's like, you'll probably take good care of it. And yes, so, so, I definitely clean up the bathroom before I went to bed every night. That's for sure.
Yeah. Do you know what comes to mind? Because you've mentioned, with getting the people and the way you did it, like through Craigslist and Facebook ads, and it's just a miracle that people show up. Because like, where did they get their confidence? I remember I had we recorded an episode with Henry Kilbane, some like half a year ago or something like that, and he told about the story of when he went to New York and got like. I don't even remember how it happened, but like, I think his landlord, Airbnb landlord, just basically asked him, what do you do for a living? Oh, I play cards and I'm a poker player. And he said, hey, do you want to go for a game? Sure. And so he said, yes. And then it's just basically, he got a phone number that he needed to call. And eventually he had to go wait for a guy in like a bus stop or something. The guy called him, said, you need to walk to like another place. And eventually, they led him to this really beat up looking place with a really scary looking door with a lot of graffiti. He had to go in there, and then it's just like one metal door, another metal door, cameras there, and it's just super
I think
scary.
I know the game. Did you say when it was? I think I know the game he's talking about, actually.
Yeah, I think it was like a couple of years ago or something like that. I don't remember.
Couple years ago?
Yeah.
Or like, maybe not.
It must have been a couple. Well, maybe like three years ago. I don't know. I can actually ask him.
Did he say where it was? Like, was it in Manhattan or Brooklyn? Or
do you know what? No, I don't think we discussed the details because obviously that was on a podcast, so we wouldn't go into the address.
Yeah. Right. No, I was just curious, like the neighborhood. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know exactly.
So what's the?
But yeah, it was pretty crazy, like the way he described it. And to me, the question was like, okay, so listen, you see the first scary door. Like, what makes you take the step and go further, right? And obviously, by the time you're at the third or the fourth door, it's like you can't go back. Now you just, you have a point to prove. You went so far, might as well follow through, right? This is ridiculous.
Or just
how our mind works.
Right?
Yeah.
Or just like you just like, I don't want to look like a bitch and just like run out of this place.
Exactly.
It's just like weird, right? It's just like pride and fear, I guess.
Yeah. What do you think drives people to play these games?
Access or limited access. I mean, if you like, especially New York, like if you're in New York, before, like if you wanted to play cards legally, you'd have to go to Atlantic City. I think was still, that was the closest place before they opened parks. If you want to go to parks, it's like 2 hours and 15 minutes to about 2 hours, right? But if you want to go to Atlantic City, it's almost, I think it's like 3 hours and 45 minutes, so it's significant. And then, there's really nothing else. And then you just getting out of the city, like most people who live in New York don't have a car, right? So just like, if you live in Philly, you probably have a car because the public transit blows. But like, and it's also like an hour or two. So like when we ran a game, like our rake was the same as the casinos, right? But if you go to New York, it's like 5 times. But also the reason is because of the real estate is so expensive. And I mean, that's pretty much, I think, the driving factor. It's just like, you're paying like $8,000 a month for fucking, loft space. It's like, you can't make money unless you charge people like out the ass, like on rake, just like everything else in the city is expensive,
Yeah.
But I really do believe it's because of the access. Like if there was a casino in Times Square, no one would ever play like, city games. There just wouldn't be any. Just like I said in Philly, right? Like as soon as Chester opened, which is a shithole near a penitentiary 30 miles away, like half my business was gone overnight, like literally overnight. Like it was like Friday, right? And it was just like, all right, we're gonna have a game. And like usually I'd have like 2 tables on a Friday, or sometimes maybe even 3, right? And then like, all right, I guess we're doing 6 max tonight.
Yeah.
So it really comes down to just the fact that like very few people drive, and your nearest casino prior to Parks was Atlantic City, which is it's a hike,
Yeah, I guess there would still be games because some people just won't go to casino to play on a regular basis, at least. But probably the guys with the ties, those would be gone from your games. That's for sure.
Right. So yeah, definitely. So there, I heard that there was still a game in Chinatown. This is in Philly. There's still a game in Chinatown. There's still a game in South Philly. And the only reason that you would ever have a game, I think, in the city if the casino opened up is that if the action is so fucking sick that like, you have an incentive. Like, it's like, I don't give a shit if there's 20 tables of 2-5 to choose from. Like, I know there's, Joey's going to be there and fucking, like Joe the jeweler or whoever the fuck, what I mean? Just like infamous, like famous, like whales, like neighborhood whales. That's the only reason. And like a couple of games did survive because of that. And like, there's a whole neighborhood thing. They'd rather give their money to, they'd rather give their money to the people in the neighborhood. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Than to the, the man. So
yeah.
Same thing with like numbers, right? There's no reason for anybody to ever play numbers, right? Like in the, like when you have a fucking lottery, right? You know what numbers are? It's like an old school, like, like mob thing. They used to like run numbers, which is basically like a neighborhood lottery. And they base it off of like the fucking numbers that are on the lottery. Right.
Right. And it's just
other ways.
Give you less money than you would than you'd actually win.
Yeah, probably. And like also like they have to do it based on like the real lotto numbers, because like they could just make up some number, and how do you know they pulled it, right? So but like, again, like that's a cultural like neighborhood thing. Like I'd rather give my money to like, show some respect to so and so down the street, you know what I mean? Versus like just giving your money to the state, So like again, like you would have to have like a really, really good reason to like keep people in your game. Like if the casino ever opens up in town. And I feel like New York games are going to be done at some point, because there's a buddy of mine like always tells me, he always keeps me up to date on like what's going on politically, and like they've been trying to get a casino in New York forever, but New York is like notoriously slow when it comes to like just new business. Like they were like the last to get like UFC, and they're just, there's a lot of red tape when you want to do business in New York. So, and like poker isn't the only underground culture there. There's like underground parties, there's underground bars, just because like, it's just so hard to do business there.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you hear about that casino is the legislation moving
Well,
forward?
yeah, I mean, like from what I've heard, like obviously everything's changed now. So I heard like, oh, like he's always like telling me like 6 more months, man, 6 more months. There's always a referendum and they're always like talking about it. Right. And then, but it's always like, there's contingencies like, hey, you have to give us $1 billion for a license. And then like, you have to build a brand new facility and then they'll go to referendum again and they'll just be like, oh, now the terms have changed. You can just open up an aqueduct, because there is a casino in New York. It's called Aqueduct. And it's just slots. And it's like, as far as I know, it's the most profitable casino on the planet. Maybe fact check that one. But from what I hear, it's the most profitable casino on the planet. You don't have like a Jamie, do you? Like working behind the
No,
like
no, that would be nice. I'm not there yet. No, that would be nice.
We could pull that shit up for us.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
No, so yeah, as far as I know, it's the most profitable casino on the planet because it's all slots and there's a shitload of people in New York and there's a shitload of money. And it's all like electronic table games, and they've talked about like, like they'll just build a wing on that. So like when we were thinking about it, when we were like, curious about it, it was just like, because a lot of what they were talking about in the past was that they had to build a brand new facility that was like part of the deal, because they need like, this construction jobs and, there's this whole lot of money that goes to the city with like building a new structure.
Right.
And then I heard like later that like maybe that wasn't going to be the case and they were going to like just let Aqueduct take the business. And then I heard like 2 companies were going to like do $500 million each or something like that and they were going to like, I forget which companies it was, so I won't say which companies it was or guess. But he's saying like 2 of them were going to get together and like put $500 million each for putting up the license. Like I said, New York's tough to do business with. You got to have a fucking $1 billion just to get a casino, right? Yeah. Just to get the laws going, and then you got to like maybe build $1 billion facility. Like, so, but. Anyways, the last I talked to him about that was like pre-COVID. So now who the fuck knows what's going on? Like God only knows like how many, like as far as like what's on the table, there's probably like way more important shit on the table that they need to sort out before they even like touch it again. Plus, like who wants to take the risk of like building a casino right now? Right. Because like, you don't know like when you can even be open for business. Cause like New York is shut down, right? Like no restaurants, no, like all like New York is all nightlife, and it's like there's nothing. There's no like concerts, there's no clubs, no bars. The restaurants are doing like fucking Uber Eats, So like I wouldn't take that risk, but the city might need money too at the same time, like after all this. Yeah. So they might be more inclined to just like, to jam it through legislation.
Yeah.
Could go either way, I really don't know. I really don't know what the hell's going on politically in New York, other than it's a fucking disaster. So I doubt anything will get done anytime soon. And I doubt the casinos, if they're smart, they would like just take the risk of just like opening an entertainment-based business until all this is sorted out, especially paying like several $1 billion for it,
Yeah. What were some of the crazy things that happened while you were running the games?
I got robbed at gunpoint. That was pretty fun. And like, it was totally my fault because like, I didn't have like proper security, and like, I just started blowing up. Like I ran like we ran like a really nice joint. Like most of the places that you play, especially like in Philly, were just like these really ragtag shitty places that were like double raking, and like, there was nothing there. It was just like some guy's basement apartment, and like we tried to make it nice. We had like, really nice equipment, bar, pool table. Like it was just kind of like a man cave, and it was in like a commercial space. So it was like, I tried to be like as professional as possible about it and treat it like a real business, especially because like one of my friends like gave me the money for it. I didn't want to like let him down,
Yeah.
And, And, there's just, so I started getting so everybody started talking about the game, just like, oh, you should go here. It's just like nicer. It's in a better location. A lot of these places were out in like City Line Avenue, which is like way the fuck out in like the suburbs. Mm-hmm. And, I even had like a deal with the guy who ran like a body shop next door, and like for, like an auto body shop. And I like paid him for parking so people could like park there at night and stuff. So, I was like customer minded, about the thing, just like took it seriously, like a real business. And then, but I didn't take the security factor into a real business. It's like, hey, I live in a pretty violent city during a recession. Maybe I should do something about the door. And I didn't. And like I went out for a drink with a friend, and then we came back, and then one of my guys opens the door, and like the guy's like, yo, Mike sent us. He's like, all right, good enough. Let's in 3 dudes, right? And like, there's no seats. It's like busy. It's like a Friday. Actually, it was Black Friday. It was like, that in America, it's like where everybody buys shit after Thanksgiving. Yeah. So it was Black Friday. Everybody's trying to get unstuck from their Christmas shopping, and like, it's like literally my busiest night. Like I didn't really have time to react. Like everybody word got around fast, and like they wanted to play at my place now. Mm-hmm. So like, I'm like drinking with I'm like at the bar. Like I just went to a bar with a friend of mine. We get back, and like these 3 guys come in, and there's no seats. So like they're standing around, which is fine. Like one guy's in the front, one guy's in the middle, and one guy's in the back with me. Right. And he like interrupts me, and he's like, hey man, you want to play some chess? And I'm like, okay. Whatever. Like, but I'm just like, yeah, it's a customer. Like he's bored. He's waiting for a seat, whatever. And like, I noticed like while he's playing chess with me, he's not like really playing chess. Like he's like looking around. Right. And I'm like kind of tight already. I'm like pretty drunk. So I'm not really like, it's not really like raising any red flags to me or anything like that. But like, he's kind of like awkward, and he's like not even really playing chess. And I'm not like a great chess player, but the shit this guy's doing doesn't make any fucking sense. Right. And then like all of a sudden, like his boy like yells something to him, and like I stand up. I don't know why I stood up, but I stand up with him, and he puts a gun in my face, and I'm just like, hello. So, and then like the thing that freaked me out about it was that the gun he had was like this, like it did not look like a gun that you choose as a professional, right? Mm-hmm. Like it looked like this beat up, old, dirty, hairy looking fucking thing that was like a long barreled like 45 revolver, just like with like what I'm talking about, like the dirty hairy gun is like a 12-inch barrel or some shit like that. And he's got a revolver in my face. It's like something you use to like hunt bears. I'm like, what the fuck? And then so like they zip tie everybody, they throw our asses to the ground, they take everybody's car keys, they take everybody's phones, they put them all in a bag. And then shit starts to get weird, because I have this like in the back of the like in the office, there's like this giant metal safe, but it's built into the masonry. It's part of like the just part of the structure. I didn't put it in or anything like that. Right. But I had like the jackpot money back there, like the high hand money, which was like $400. I don't know why I kept it in there. It was just kind of like fun to put stuff in there, because it was like this giant metal fucking like like literally like a door, like a 4-foot door with a latch that bolted right into the masonry, and there's like a giant padlock on it. Totally don't need it, right? And like they want to know what the fuck is in there. They're like, yo, let's get like, where's the fucking key to the safe? And I'm like, yeah, over here. Like, my face is like on the ground. They're like, who said that? And I'm like, my face is like on the ground, like my cheeks on the floor. I got my hands behind my back. I'm like, yeah, it's on my keys. Because I'm just like, just take the fucking money, man. It's like fucking $400. I don't give a shit, And like they really want to know what's in there, because it looks like something's being protected, right? Right. Because it's a giant safe, and like So they've already put everybody's fucking keys into the bag though. Like it's just
So
there's
now
like
it's
30
amplified.
pairs of keys, right? So he's like going through, he's like, is this the one? Is this the one? I'm like, no, right? And then so eventually they don't find it. I don't know where the fuck they put my keys. Like he's just like nervously going through all of them. Like I don't know, like he doesn't have a system. He's just like picking some up, putting them back in the same bag. It's like you might want to use like a process of elimination so that we can figure this shit out, right? And then like I'm like looking at it with like my head craned upward while my like torso is like flat down on the ground, right? And I'm just like, no, that's not it. That's not it. He's like, quit fucking with me. And I'm just like, I'm not, dude. You know, those aren't the keys. I was like, where are my keys? You took my keys. He's like, shut the fuck up. And then they like take the waitress in the back and they're like, open the fucking safe. And I'm like, oh shit's getting out of hand. I was like, dude, there's nothing in the safe. He's like, bullshit. You know, and I'm just like, oh fuck. It's like I'm gonna lose my fucking life here over $400 fucking dollars, you know, after they took like 10 grand out of the place. And like eventually they were just like, all right, fuck it. And I was like, oh thank God. And they leave. And like, and then I get up and I'm like, hello everyone. Sorry about that. You know, it's kind of embarrassing to say the least. But I told everyone immediately. I was like, just like, I'm sorry, everyone. Like, I'll pay you all back, and I did. And everybody got the money back. And of course, that means I didn't make any fucking money because I just started to blow up. And then, so we got back into it. People like eventually, like the fact that we gave everyone's money back, they like came back. They started to come back. I told them like, hey, we increased the security. I went like fucking overboard. I got like a security guy. I got double doors. I got cameras on the outside. I created a security bay where like you come in to a set of doors and then like the guy pats you down. And then like he like gives a thumbs up to like the guy outside the booth. And then that guy lets everyone like lets the both of them in. I had like a, you know, and like all I probably had to do is just put a fucking, you know, camera on the outside and just like have some sort of screening for letting people in. Not like, hey, I know Mike, right? Like that would have, like that would have fixed probably 80% of the problem. And then, you know, like I just was like, but I had to like I had to reestablish confidence in the players who were there. And obviously everybody heard about it. Right. Yeah. Because that's the way they heard about me in the first place. Was they all talk about it, and then so like I had to like rebuild again, you know, the game, and then Chester's open, and then so I didn't really make much of anything. I put a lot of money back into the game, you know, and you know, it's kind of like it was just like a learning experience, like a fucking disaster, basically, just like every first business is for like a lot of people, I guess. Right. But I was also really young and really fucking stupid and naive and, you know, just didn't understand like basic shit, like security. Like if you're going to have a fucking underground card game in middle of Philadelphia, you should probably have some kind of security. I mean, there was like the front door was glass, like it was ridiculous. But they didn't even need to break the glass because we just fucking let them in, you know, it was like, whatever. So, yeah, so that's one story. I'm trying to think of,
yeah, it's pretty crazy. How many of the people actually got back into the game after that, all that happened?
I'd say like 80% of them.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, I paid everybody back, and like, I kind of did that thing that like the department stores do. So I'm like, here's store credit. We can pay you in store credit, you know, and they're just like came back and played. Yeah. And it's like you're gonna lose it anyways, so I would like make people like come to the game at least to like pick it up, right? And then like a lot of them would stay. Yeah. So, but I was like, you know, I'm like a pretty nice dude. Like I'm not some like, you know, hardcore criminal. So like a lot of them like respected the fact that I was like at least trying to like make a, you know, a nice experience for everyone. But
and those guys who were robbing, like, how scary was it? What was your experience actually going through that?
Dude, I mean, like, I was just shocked at first. And then when they started flipping out about the safe, I was like, I'm dead. I'm like, I'm going to fucking die here. And so is everybody else. Because like if they're gonna kill like one person, they're gonna kill everybody, right? You can't just leave like 20 witnesses. But I think like they might have done it. I mean, these guys were fucking crazy,
right?
Like, and they were like desperate, so they didn't give a fuck, like they had nothing to lose. And like I think they just kind of like did a count real quick. They were just like, well, if I kill this guy, I'm gonna have to kill everyone, and there's 35 people who, it's not gonna work out.
Yeah, we only have 20 bullets, right? So
yeah, exactly. You're gonna have to and then one guy's got a fucking revolver, so it's not that hard to reload.
Yeah, well, it takes a while though. Imagine shooting 30 people with a revolver. A fucking horror movie scene. What the fuck is going on? One by one.
Like, and you're the poor bastard who's last. So you gotta like go through it all
already. Like, Jesus fucking Christ. Oh man, that would be fucking horrible though.
Yeah, I mean, I was like really. At first, I was just like. It was just kind of like an adrenaline shock. I wasn't really thinking about anything. I was just like, oh, this sucks. Oh my God, this sucks. And then like once they started freaking out, I was like starting to like let it unfold. I'm like, these guys are not getting out of here. And like, I can't help them because the one guy's like freaking out. He's like just going through the keys willy nilly. Like he doesn't fucking like have a system for, and like, I don't like, I mean, it was like 5 minutes, and they also took the waitress in there, and they were like doing shit to her. They weren't like raping or anything like that, but they were like, get the safe open. She's like, I don't know what's going on. So they thought maybe she knew where like the key, like I was fucking with him, and that maybe she knew where the keys were, because they couldn't really tell who like the floor was, and they were like using her to like get people's shit out of their pockets and stuff like that. It was weird. Yeah, and in New York. So in New York, you don't really have to worry about
staying back on that one before going to New York.
Sure,
at least it's good, sort of reassuring to know that if the guys start their thing with like, okay, we're gonna take all the phones away, we're gonna take all the keys away, we're gonna zip tie everybody, face on the floor. At least it gives you a semblance of they know a bit about what they're doing.
Yeah, no, I mean, they were definitely like professional at first. They were like calm too, which is really weird.
Which is
like they were saying like all this
more
cool
reassuring,
shit.
right? Because it's the crazy fuck who's just gonna run through the door.
No,
that's the one where you're dead.
Yeah, so that's the one that like I heard, like I've heard so many fucking stories from like the guy who was shot in New York. But like one of the stories that keeps popping up is that the guys were like really nervous. They were all cranked up. And the guy just was like, he was just spazzing. And I think he dropped the shotgun. I don't know. Like, so this, yeah. And like it shot someone in the belly. So like, but I don't know. I wasn't there, but it's funny. I can guarantee if you go to a poker game in New York, right? Like 90% of the people there were at that thing. But when I say that, I don't actually mean they were. They're just full of shit, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like, yeah, man, I was there. I was sitting right next to the guy. Like, there's always like half the fucking table at least has a story about that night, even though like nobody was there.
Right. So, yeah, I interrupted you when you wanted to talk about the New York. Something happened in New York, you said.
What happened in New York? That's a good question. Where are we going with that? What did I say? Just like things that happened there?
No, it was like, so we were talking about getting robbed there at the gunpoint.
No, yeah. I know where you're going. Okay, so like New York, like the thing that you have to worry about in New York is not really people robbing you, is because the cops in Philly do not give a shit that you're running a game. And I have kind of a funny story about that too, which I can prelude here very quickly. So my first problem with my game in Philly was I went to go out to get like a sandwich during the game, right? And I had like my bedroom was in the back, right? Because this was like a big loft space, so I just lived there. And so I had my gun, the original gun that I had that gave me some problems, right, in the past.
Yeah, the lucky
it was
gun.
hidden. Yeah, the lucky gun, exactly. That's a good way to put it. So I had my gun in my room. I mean, I think it was hidden. Like I hid it like in the nightstand or near the nightstand somewhere, And so I go out and I go, hey, Harris, keep an eye on my shit. Just make sure nobody goes back there. And he's like, okay. And like, it's the wrong person to ask to like watch anything.
Right.
And so I go out, I get my sub, and then I come, like we finish the game, I come back in, and then like I'm getting ready to go to bed. And like, when you have a gun, the gun is always on your mind. And I'm just like, dude, where's my gun? I'm just like, what the fuck? Where's my gun? Oh my God, where the fuck is my gun? And I'm like tearing apart my room trying to find my gun. And someone fucking stole it.
Oh, wow.
So, right, I have this dilemma. How do I have a gun that was stolen? And the problem with that is that if you don't report it stolen, it's used in a crime. You can be charged for the same crime to a degree, right? You have to report a stolen gun. So I call up my friend and I'm like, dude, I lost my gun. Somebody stole it. And he goes, you know what? I have a cop friend I can ask about this. Right. Mm-hmm. But the cop friend, turns out, had just joined the force like 3 months ago. Right. Right. So he doesn't know shit. Right. So he calls up his friend and he gets back to me. He's like, hey, all right, listen, my friend said, he's like, just say, like somebody stole it, like just make up some shit. Like somebody stole it. Don't use the card room. Just like, you have the house. So just say someone stole it from your house. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, I'll just do that. Right. So like I go back to the house, which I haven't been in months because I'm like living at the poker room on the other side of town. Right. And because it was actually like a way better place to live. I live in like the fucking ghetto, like in my house, and then like my apartments in like Center City. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's like a way better place to live, even though it's in the card room. There's just so much space too. It was like a huge loft. Anyways, so I go to the house. And I'm just like making up this fucking story. I'm just like, okay, well, I got to tell the cop this. I got to tell him this. I got to stick to this story. And it's like, this is like something out of a movie where just like some idiot has a plan, and you're just watching it all go wrong. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's like that movie. What's that movie called? With Philip Seymour Hoffman. It's Before the Devil Knows You're Dead. They're like trying to like rob their parents' jewelry store for the insurance money without letting them know. It's like that. I mean, it's obviously, they get murdered in that movie, so it's not that bad, but it's like the same kind of shit. It's just like, this guy has a really stupid plan. It's not going to work when it plays out. Right. So like I call the cops, call 911. I go, yeah, somebody stole my gun from my house. And they're like, okay, we'll send somebody out. And this cop shows up and he's really cool. He's like, hey man, what's going on? I was like, yeah, man. I was like, I had my gun on the table. I'm like breathing heavily. I'm just like obviously lying. I'm like, I'm like breathing heavily. I'm just like, so like I had my gun on the table and some guy, like I forgot about it. I went to Home Depot because I'm obviously fixing up this house, even though it's obvious that I have no incentive to do so because the real estate market crashed. And like I came back and it's gone. And I thought I locked the screen door, but I don't think I did. And now it's gone. And he just looks at me. He's like, all right, man, it's all good. It's like, we'll just get in the car. just get in the car and we'll go down to the station and we'll just take a report. Just calm down. Everything's fine. I'm like, all right. And then I'm like starting to feel okay. But then he like puts me in the back. Right. All right. And I'm like in the back and I'm just like, oh, this is never been back here before. So I go to, so we go to the station and this is the West Philly station. This is not a place you want to be. Like, this is like a station that's just like, it looks like a fucking bomb shelter. Like that has like no resources. It's all fucked up. It's like not the one they're trying to like, let everybody see how nice and clean a Philadelphia police station is, like the one downtown, right? This is like the West Philly precinct, right? Mm-hmm. So I go there and like, I'm talking to this detective and they just sit me down and like, and he's just like, wait. And I'm just like, fuck. Like, I just know I'm fucked. So I just try to stick to my story for like 10 seconds, right? And he's like, follow me. And he's like, give me your belt and your shoelaces. And they lock me in a fucking like individual cell.
Right.
And there's writing all over the walls, like, fuck these pigs and shit like that. I'm just like the people who they put in this cell, like, don't give a fuck. Like like, there's been some wild animals in this cell, right? So I'm just like, oh my God. And then like, they have like 3 people come in and interrogate me. They have like, they send in like this lady, and like, she's just like tearing me apart. She's like, you're going to jail for this. You're lying to us and all this shit. I was just like, oh fuck. And then they send in the good cop, you know, and like, this is just like a classic. They were just like, this idiot fucking scared white boy, we'll just use the basic shit on this kid because he doesn't know shit. Like, he hasn't even been arrested and he's about to crack, right? And like, sure enough, dude, I mean, it's like so embarrassing.
They're probably having a lot of fun.
No, yeah, I mean, in a way they are, but like, gun violence in Philly was actually, I think at that point, taken very seriously, just because it was getting so out of hand. And like, the guy who like threw me in the cell, like, looked like he was really pissed off. He didn't even actually talk to me. They sent like a couple of other people in. So like, the good cop comes in, he's just like, and so I told him this real story. I was like, listen, all right, just, I'll level with you. It's like, this is what really happened. My gun was stolen, but I don't know by who, but I think it was this little shit named Corey. Because this kid was just like the shadiest kid there. And I just gave him his number, and they're like, why didn't you just tell us that in the first place? I was like, well, and at this point, I'm like, I feel like I'm already fucked. Like, I'm going to jail, so I might as well just tell them everything, which is like the opposite of what you're supposed to fucking do. And I was just like, oh, I run a poker game at the place that it was stolen. And the guy just goes, so? I was like, well, it's kind of like an illegal underground poker game. And he just looks at me and he's like, dude, we don't give a fuck about that. He's like, why like you could have just told us that and taken us to the place. And anyways, long story short, I was just like, really? You guys don't give a shit? They're like, no, just tell us who stole your gun or who would think you stole your gun. And then they put me in the real precinct, like the downtown one. They had to ship me over there because it was in their jurisdiction. And then, but they were still kind of pissed off at me that I lied. And then they were just like, and then I go down to the clean center city precinct, and they're just like, yo, you need to book this kid for wrongful, blah, blah, blah. And then they're just like the sergeant just looks at the guy. He's like this big, like fat white guy with a mustache. He's just like, what? It's a fucking gun. It's a fucking stolen gun. When nobody gives a shit. So you just let it go.
Oh man. And
then I told them everything, at this point, I'm like, I'm not lying again. I got burned on that one. Holy shit, because this fucking cop told me to do that. Even though and my friend felt really bad because I told him the whole story. And he was like, fuck, man, I feel so bad. I'm like, it's all right, dude. I was like, what the fuck else was I going to do? Right. I didn't have a plan of my own. It was good enough.
Yeah.
So that's another story from Philly. And then someone else has got the fucking lucky gun, so fuck it. Problem solved.
Well, I guess your problem is also solved because you have no more gun stories. I don't think you have any good gun stories. Every time you have gun stories,
I think they're pretty fucking good.
No, they're good stories, but they're not happy stories, right?
Yeah.
You don't have the happy gun stories.
Yeah, but, and I'm not like a big political guy. Like, I don't give a shit about, guns or not, but it's like, it just so happens in that context, it didn't work out so well.
Yeah.
But, so New York. So New York, you don't really have to worry about people robbing you because that doesn't happen very often because the games are small. The smaller, there's usually a lot of one table operations. They do get robbed, but as far as many games there were in New York during this, third generation that I was talking about, just how many, there's gotta be 100 games in the city at least. Right. There's 9 million people there. And then, but you don't have to worry about people robbing you so much. You have to worry about the cops, and they have their own squad called Vice. which if you get raided, you're getting raided by Vice. They do prostitution and gambling and a number of other, I think, like, illegal cigarette sales or something like that. I don't know.
Right.
So I was never arrested in New York, but like pretty much everybody I worked with was. And the game that I was at got raided twice, actually. And I was just lucky enough on both of those nights. One time I was like out at a dinner theater, like one of those places where they like, you like get drunk and eat hot dogs and shit at the, at like while you're watching the movies, like out in Brooklyn, like the hipster whiskey, like theater. And it happened like while I was like, out with my girlfriend, like watching a movie. And then, and the other time, I was just, so the other time, the guy who I was working for, he had two games, actually. He had like different operations. He had like a West Side one and an East Side one, because like the rumor was that like, if you run a 2-table operation, like they're going to pop you because it's just too big. And then, but if you have like just one table, like the 1-table ones, as far as we knew, like hardly ever got popped. Right. So he had like 2 apartments. So like half the week we were on one side of the city, and then the other half we were, and it worked good because like, there were like people who lived on different sides of the city. And for whatever reason, fucking New Yorkers hate going across town. I don't know why that is. I guess it's like hard because the avenues, like, going north and south, like the avenues are wider. So when you have to go across, there's only like, it's only like one lane. So it's like, it's easy to get jammed up. So it was nice that like, people who lived on, either side would just like pick their night, and then they would just like play. But anyways, I was actually like cleaning that room because it was my bedroom. At the time it was my night off. And then like, the guy told me, he's like, hey, you're laid off for a while. I was like, all right. But so like I never went to, so that part in the book about like central booking, I actually just asked my friends who I worked with, like what happened and like what was it like. And then the other part, like, so like when I describe it in the book, was actually from their accounts and also from reading the Yelp reviews of central booking, which are hilarious.
Really?
Yeah, it's just like they're so funny. Like it's just like,
that's a funny place to do your research. Like, why not? I wonder. let's book, or like Jesus Christ, reviews. So tell me about them. There must be some gems there.
Yes, so some of the like the people are really funny on you just check it out. It's just like, grilled cheese sandwich, compliments of the house. But it just describes like how you get from like point A to like arraignment, pretty much,
Right.
And like it just describes the whole process of like the bullpen and all that shit. But I never went myself. So, but I've paid my dues in other ways. Yeah, and the gun thing, like I was never charged with anything. They just let me go. They were just like, all right, this is the guy, right? This is who you think did it. I was like, look, dude, I'll give you every fucking number on my phone. I'll give you the names of everybody who was there. Like, I don't give a shit. Just like, just like, let me go. And I don't know how I guess it was resolved because they never contacted me again about that. But, so in New York, in Philly, you got to worry about getting robbed. In Philly, you got to worry about, the cops. And that's true of just being a citizen. I mean, you can get arrested for anything in New York. Like everything is illegal in New York. It's ridiculous. It's like, not having a fucking bell on your bike, you can get like pulled over. Stupid. But,
all right. I noted that you've mentioned double raking when you were talking about the games, that you were running your game with the customer in mind, and obviously some games do all sorts of shit. Can you talk a bit about that and like what are some of the things that other games do to
so like I never double raked my game. Like if I did and we found out, like somebody did it, we either fired them or told them not to do it again. Just because it's like, it's like if someone asks, here's the thing, as a player, if you ever go into a game, okay, don't ask what the rake is, because you just look like an asshole. And like, you also look like a nit, and they're not going to want you there. Right. So like, if you want to be invited back, don't be like, excuse me, sir, what's the rake in this game? Like, where everyone can hear you, like the same, don't talk about the rake. Don't mention it. Don't fucking ask the floor what it is. If you need to ask, like, ask the guy who you contacted on the phone about the rake. If you want to be invited back, if you just want to be a fucking moron, go ahead. If you want to be like a total douchebag who just wants to show it, like, those, like, there's those fucking players who just want to show everyone how intelligent they are about poker, like how fucking hit, like, wise to the, you know what I mean? They're like, I don't know what I never figured out what the, I'm sure you've talked about it before. Like there's always some guy at the table, I'm sure there's a name for him, who's just like always talking about like odds and shit. He's just like, he's the most knowledgeable fucking player and he wants everybody to know it. I don't know why the fuck you would want everybody to know that, unless you do know the things and you just can't execute them and you want respect. Like you want to be able to bluff more. I don't know. But there's the same kind of person, like, who will just like some total, like, Wall Street quant douchebag will just show up and be like, excuse me, before I sit down and play, how much is the rake? Like not even being subtle about it. And like everybody can hear his ass. And it's like, now it's like, well, now you've really pissed them off, because like, not only did you ask, but like, you've like, everybody fucking heard you. So like now the whole operation is exposed to, now everybody's like looking at it, So like, if you ever want to play in a game and like and come back, like don't talk about it, just look at it and then figure it out for yourself, because the thing is like most places, I don't know about most, I would say probably most places, like they're going to double rake anyway. So it doesn't matter what the fuck they tell you, right? Just look at it. Yeah. And that's how you know what the rake is. Yeah. And if someone double rakes, don't like call them out on it, because that could get you probably in trouble. Like with some people, Yeah. It's like you just blow up their whole operation. You just told all their customers who were perfectly fine getting ripped off before, that someone was double raking, and then like now they're gonna bust the ball, like the guy's balls who runs the game, and like obviously that's not gonna be, nobody wants that. But the whole point is like, look, if the rake's too high for you, just get up and leave. Like don't say shit about it. It's not gonna be good for anybody, particularly you. But anyways, like. What was the question?
How does the double rake? Can you describe that? Because like a lot of my audience probably never played in a private game before, so they're not like familiar with the term.
All they do is like, obviously you don't double rake every pot, right? Like that's just stupid. What you do is like you put out the max rake on the fucking tray, right, at the dealer, and then like when there's a lot of action, let's say by the turn, like there's two people are all in. And you dropped it once, you just fucking drop it again. Easy, right? Like the hand is like there's so many chips in the pot that like nobody notices, because they're all fixated on the action. They're looking somewhere else. That's it. That's all there is to it. You don't double rake $20 pots, right? You double rake fucking $500 pots. Like in a 1-2 game, for instance.
Yeah. What are some of the other things?
It's not a magic trick, It's just
obviously. Most people don't pay attention. I mean, I've been in games where, watching the rake is probably the least of your problems, because there's so
seriously, and most people don't care. Like most people are not winners. Most people are not like there to like try to beat the rake. Like they're there for action. I mean, that's why people like you play poker, because there's tons of those people who don't give a fuck, and so like, you shouldn't be like. You shouldn't, even if the rake is like is dishonest, like don't ruin that guy's time. He's stuck like 6 buy-ins. He's got enough on his plate. You don't have to fucking like bust his balls.
Yeah. Well, one thing also, like with the, say complaining about the rake and such. Like I always wonder, what did they actually expect going to happen? Like, well, you're going to say, hey, you know what, the rake's too high, and you just double raked. And what, the guy's supposed to say, oh, we're sorry, we didn't know yet. Like,
yeah, and
what exactly? Like,
to be honest,
what do you expect?
Yeah, to be honest, like, you know, I've only seen this happen in New York, you know, just like, so there.
Yeah, I've seen it in other places that outside of the States. I've seen it in places. But then again, like, double raking was the least of the problems of that game. That game also had that game had a dealer who had really quick hands. Let's put it this way. I mean, the guy, fucking magician.
Wow.
And
Ricky J.
All sorts of. No, it was just a local genius outside of the States. And and the collusion and whatnot. I mean, all these games, you know, just like.
So here's the thing. So to that end, right, I would have to say that, like, of all the games, and I've heard so many fucking stories from so many fucking people about cheating, and the game is here. And what's the favorite word? Rigged. It's fucking rigged, right? It's not fucking rigged, man. Like, these guys are, you know, like, they're smoking pot on their, like, down breaks, you know, like, they don't, like, nobody is there, like, ripping you off in a 1-3 game, you know, like they're not pulling cards out of their fucking sleeves, like, for your $200. Like, get over yourself, you know, like, your money doesn't mean shit, you know? So, like, I've heard of some things happening in, like, bigger, like, really big games where, like, some crazy shit, we're talking, like, but I can't even confirm them, you know? It's like, I feel like they're mostly full of shit. But the higher you go in stakes, obviously, the bigger incentive there is to pull, like, players' buy-ins off the table. Like, you know, you make enough money, you know, like, what are you going to do? You're going to steal some guy's $200 in fucking chips, like, at a 1-3 game. So if you don't want to be cheated, I would just say, like, play, like, the lower stakes and you'll be fine. Like, even up to, like, 5-5, like, there's just no incentive to, like make, like, what, you're gonna find, like, the best card cheat on the fucking planet to, like, steal some guy's $1,000. Like, just rake the game, you'll make $1,000. Like, whatever, you know?
That's a very good point. And it's
like,
true. Most of the games are just clean because it's just too much trouble for not so much.
It also
and
takes,
it's not
like,
even
an enormous
easy, right?
Yeah, it takes an enormous amount of talent to be a card cheat. Like, it's not like something you can just do. Like, I mean, Ricky J. You know, Ricky J is, right? He's like the magician guy who did all the card tricks, and, like, I think he's dead now, but he's like, you know, he claims to have, like, he doesn't actually claim anything, but the way he says it is just like, yeah, he obviously used to cheat at cards. But you know, like, just to do shit where you're, like, pulling, like, the shit Worm did in fucking Rounders, right? That stuff, like, you know, you literally have to go to, like, prison, so you have, like, 12 hours a day to just practice shit like that. Like, you're not going to do it, like, for, you know, like, a fucking 1-3 or a 5-5 game. It's just it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, but it's also, like, that's not how it's done anyway, because, you know, that's the misconception a lot of people have of if the game is rigged, that means, like, it's rigged every hand. That would be, like, ridiculous proposition, because all you need really is one hand, right? Because it doesn't matter.
It has to be one hand. If it happens like every half hour, people are going to be like, what the fuck? You know, like, how many coolers does this game have? You know, it's just like, what the, like, it just, in the end, the only way too suspicious.
Yeah. In the end, the only thing that matters is where the money is in the end of the day. Right. And you can like, you know, keep the customer happy. It's just like, oh, okay, let's play 14 hours, 16 hours. Here's a drink, whatever. And then towards the end, I mean, first of all, nobody's paying attention anymore because everybody's fucking tired. Right. And then small things can happen. And it doesn't have to be like a huge thing. Right. Because, again, small edges add up. And, you know, if you have a small edge in
just based on the
every
service
now and
alone,
then it's just bound to happen, right? So, but as you said, in the smaller stakes games, these things are very unlikely, just because it doesn't, you know, who cares? Like, why would you do that anyway? The incentive.
I mean, like, I promise you that if you're playing a 1-3 or 1-2 game somewhere in some city, and you lost some sick hand. Oh my God, what a fucking cooler. You were not cheated. Yeah. Just fucking deal with it. It's like, it's just to that level of skill to pull off that kind of shit. And like, if somebody ever catches you, like you can never like deal in another game again. Like everybody knows that you're a cheat, I've heard of like some people who actually were doing it, but like got caught just because, and that's the other thing, like to do it and never get caught is what you need to do to pull it off. Right.
Yeah.
So like, if you're going to take that chance, you have to do it at the highest level so that like for the biggest payout. Otherwise you're going to be, you're risking too much to like,
I don't know, but you're talking about some high level shit, right? I know a lot of little moves happening now and then, right? Because once again, like if the dealer has a partner, right? And if the dealer manages to once every 2 hours or something signal a position of one of the hands, that's already a tiny edge,
Sure, but it's not going to happen for fucking $500, right?
Well,
it's just, like, I mean, like I've heard of actually players trying to cheat. Like they'll bring in cards because like a lot of the clubs use the same type of fucking cards. They all use Copags or Chems, right? So you just buy a fucking ace. Not an ace, but you buy your own fucking Copags and Chems. It's like, okay, this guy's using a blue deck, and like we actually caught somebody who like slipped a fucking ace. He fell out of his fucking pocket. It was like we're just like, dude, get the fuck out of here. And the other thing that you want to do is just like, I mean, like a lot of time, like one thing that I see it happen a lot is like the dealer will just, not a lot, but like what does happen just because in unregulated rooms is that like the dealer would just get back in with his deck without resuiting it. And then like all of a sudden, here comes the turn. Oh, look, another 9 of spades, everyone.
Yeah.
Like that kind of shit. Or, in a case where he's like missing cards, which you're never going to know. So, like whatever. As long as nobody knows, I guess they're all, I don't know. All things being equal, So, yeah, I mean, for the most part, I think they're like pretty clean, I mean, like double raking only happens like on huge pots. So it's not really like, and like, honestly, I don't blame people for doing it because it's like, oh God, this hand's lasted 5 fucking minutes. This guy's been in the tank for like 45 seconds on the fucking turn, like I need to get an extra $10 here, man. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, in a way it's sort of justified, I think, and like, if you're trying to like beat city games, you're just an asshole. Like just go there to have fun for fuck's sake, It's like really you're gonna like, like rape like the world on fucking commodities options all day long, and then you're gonna go to a fucking like with all your free time, you're gonna go to like some game where so you can have a little bit of edge on your recreational time too. Like just get a fucking life, man. Just like let your hair down a half inch, loosen your fucking tie up and have some fun, It's like I've met so many people who just like they're just like obsessed with money. Like they just want to like all their free time, all their recreational time needs to be like spent, winning money. It's just like, dude, like this is not set up for you to win. It's set up for entertainment. So treat it as such. Yeah. And maybe me saying that will actually make games a little bit better because the fucking nits will just stay home. They're miserable fucks anyway,
They just were waiting for your advice. They're like, oh shit, he's right. He's talking about me. All right, no more poker.
Yeah, I mean, those are the kinds of people.
About, constant making money kind of thing, but it's also about trying to find an edge, trying to compete all the time, trying to beat people out of whatever. And it's just this competitive drive, which, a lot of professions have. And especially, I suppose in New York, that's just the kind of place for those type of people.
I mean, honestly, like, I don't know. I mean, there's too many variables to know if like a game is beatable or not based on the rake, right? It's just like a lot of it's dependent on the action. A lot of it's dependent on your skill level plus the action or times the action, whatever the fucking, like a formula is. But so it's not like I can say, and it's not like I can say that like, oh, if you play in city games, like they're unbeatable. Cause like, you don't know that. Like it depends on like how good the game is, and the rake. I mean, I don't think it's possible to calculate on like a long term. I mean, like if you're there on a night when there's just a bunch of nits and there's no whales, then yeah, maybe it's unbeatable. But maybe on times where like the guy's fucking shipping his chips in like every fucking other hand, then like, cause I mean, like, some of these city games attract some huge whales, cause they don't give a fuck. And sometimes you get like really good action in them. So I would say that like, don't worry about the rake, man.
Yeah.
It's fine. Just go there, try to have some fun, like, if you get some action, then, it's probably beatable. And like, if the game sucks, you shouldn't be playing it anyway. It's like game selection is like kind of a thing, isn't it? Like in terms of, making decisions as a professional card player, I would think.
That being said, I mean, so many people, myself included, some decisions looking back at them, they make a good story. They might make a good book, but they are not good decisions. That's for sure.
No, I mean, like every fucking decision I make seems to be fucking terrible. So, but I'm an artist. It's all good. It's like I have to get into adventurous situations for me to, to be a literary giant. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. Well, let's talk about writing again. We started with that, and then we sort of segued into the games and poker and guns being pointed at your face.
Yeah.
So actually, before we go more into writing, what's up with John Curry? How did you get the pseudonym?
Okay, so I didn't know that John Curry was like this, like a possibly homosexual figure skater. I had no idea when I chose the name. So if you look up John Curry, that's who you're going to find.
I wish I had like Jamie or something, but I am sitting at the computer just out of curiosity.
I don't want to say the guy's necessarily a homosexual, but he's a figure skater, so odds are whatever. So anyways, but that's who you're going to find if you look up John Curry. If you look up We Run Bad, I'm all over the place. So John Curry so I read this book a while back called by Herbert Asbury, who wrote like Gangs of New York, and he wrote like a bunch of like American history type, like crowd pleaser type books. He's also like I didn't realize how old he was actually. I think he's dead, but like these books are actually really old. But one of them was called Sucker's Progress. And Sucker's Progress is the history of gambling in America. And it kind of stops in like the 1950s. It just tells you like how old this fucking book is. Mm-hmm. And so you're not really going to find a whole lot about like modern poker or like anything really, but it's very interesting to like go through and like listen to like how like America's like relationship with gambling is like fucking crazy. Actually, it's like Columbia University actually was started on a lottery. I mean, it wasn't Columbia University back then, but it was like they started a lottery to create a university, which is now Columbia, and that's what's there today. And then that's just like one anecdote. So like John Curry was this guy that he talks about in the book just randomly. And if you look him up on Google, you won't really find the anecdote anywhere. But it's in the book. And he was this guy who used to run this like sort of, I don't know if it would be considered underground or illicit, but he ran like a casino in like the 1600s, basically when like that part of America was France, right?
Okay.
And he was in New Orleans, like the Louisiana Territory, and he ran. I always had this love for New Orleans for some reason. I'm just like really into it. Like I've written about it in really bad novels. And but anyways, he was this guy who used to run like a really high class casino for French aristocrats in the territory back then. And like just some of the stuff that like in that book was just like very interesting to me. So I was like, that's me, man. I'm John Curry.
Right.
So that's where John Curry comes from.
I see. All right. So tell me about publishing the book, right? Because you've mentioned that it's been declined, and
Oh yeah, that's so like if you go onto Amazon, it says the Okie Doke Book Publishing Corporation. Guess what? Doesn't exist.
Okay.
I just made that shit up. That's what the Okie Doke. I don't know if you know what the Okie Doke is in like American cult. It's like being hoodwinked. It's like fake. Yeah. So yeah, it's like a fake publishing company that doesn't exist that I made up. That I made like a little. It's like some. The logo is like a some kind of Art Deco looking thing, like in front of on top of a black hole, something like that. Anyways, it's just supposed to be ridiculous. So you're supposed to know that it's not actually published. That was kind of the point. And then like I self-published it. I used to run a literary magazine with my friend. He edited it for me. He's a really good editor, actually. And and he actually knew how to do all that, like that EPUB and Kindle like .mobi publishing stuff. It's like it's like secondhand for him because we have an electronic magazine. Right. Like everything we publish is on Kindle, so in EPUB. So he was able to he just did all that for me, and I just paid him to do it. So and then I released it on Amazon, and just as you'd expect, if you wrote an ebook and published it on Amazon, you didn't make any money.
Yep.
Big surprise there. So, I spent a bunch of money on the cover and stuff like that. And, it's it was a resounding failure, as all books are these days, especially in this fucking country. Because Americans don't read fiction, or if they do, it's just like victim oppression porn, LGBTQ, feminist, women's lives, like women's matters and whatnot. It's just like, there's like no fucking, there's no like contemporary fiction being published at all. It's all just like identity politics driven garbage. And that's as far as you'll get from me on political matters. But it really is affecting like fiction. Like there just really isn't. It could be the fact that just nobody reads fiction anymore. But my suspicion is that like they're just not publishing good fiction anymore, and that's why it's no longer read. Like I don't really buy. I mean, I would read a fucking book if like the new Fight Club came out. I would definitely read it. I mean, not the actual new Fight Club because that sucks.
Something like that.
But like the new Chuck.
It actually sucks.
What Fight Club 3? Fight Club 3, I'm pretty sure blows. I mean, I don't like any of Chuck Palahniuk's work except for like 3 of his books. Like all of his new stuff, I just find to be just unreadable. But like,
from his stuff, I only read actually the original Fight Club, and that's it. And
he's on to like the 3rd one.
Really?
No, I said Fight Club, the original one was great. I'm just saying he's on like the 3rd edition.
I didn't even know. I didn't even know that there's. But to me, I don't even want. It doesn't appeal. Like to me, that story was rounded out nicely. I don't want to see a follow up.
Yeah, nobody does. That's the thing. But anyways,
now that I know that it exists, I might actually check it out.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to. I don't blame the guy for just trying to get as much content out there as possible and kind of like humping his name because like his agent stole like $50 million from him or some ridiculous amount of money.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so he was like broke for a while because his agent stole all of his money, and then like they gave him the option to like give it back or go to jail. He's like, no, I'll take the years.
Shit.
So, anyways, not to like cast aspersions on Chuck Palahniuk because I obviously did love him when I was younger. I just don't really think he has like many good books, and that's fine. Like that's more good books than the average fucker has, you know. But anyways, if the new American Psycho or the new like Chuck, you know, like a Fight Club came out, I don't even think it would be published these days. Just because like your average New York City agent is just like so woke that it's just like they're just not interested in art. They're just interested in political shit, you know?
Well, they're interested in selling books. And the reality is, you know, for a new author, a new name to come up with the book and it to get traction, pretty damn hard.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, like, but they won't even like, it's not just me, you know, like I can live without being published, right? What I can't live, I mean, I can live with it, but like what I don't want to live with is like a world where there's no new art, like real art. You know what I mean? Stuff that surprises you. Like, where is the next, you know, Easton Ellis? Where is the next Polnick? Like, they're not being published if they are out there, right? So that's kind of like my point, is that like, I don't expect people to like, you know, like I don't really actually think I'm like that great of a writer. But you know, like those books that I'm talking about, like there are no new books like that. Like there's no really good contemporary fiction being published right now. Like literally nothing in America anyway.
Yeah, but that being said, you know, with the self-publishing, at least we can get things out, right? Obviously,
true.
How many numbers, like what?
But you're also like screaming. You're also just kind of screaming into the abyss, though. Just because you have it out there doesn't mean like anyone's gonna like read it, you know.
Well, same with any content. I mean, look at like even if you do, let's say a podcast or something, like to think that you can just put all your life into it. Still nobody's going to hear it because, you know, like, you know, unless it picks off somehow. And that's just the reality of any content, right? Once you have traction, once you have a name, once people already know, okay, you know, I read his other book, that seemed all right. I'm going to go for this one, a new one, and then the new one, and then the next one, you know, then it's like a snowball. But the first few books, that's so hard.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I don't write for like, you know, success. I really don't. I just do it because like I've always liked to do it. Like, you know, being able to make a living doing it. I don't even know if I would be able to do that. Like just like with that kind of like thing on my mind, like, oh, I got to put out a new fucking book this year. Otherwise I'm not going to be able to pay the rent. You know, like I don't really want that pressure, but like, it doesn't really deter me from writing. It's just, I would like to have like some kind of voice, you know, just like in a like some kind of like legitimate context, just like, hey, just give it a shot, you know, just see if people like, I sold a few thousand books on my own, you know. It's like, if you actually put it in a bookstore, like maybe, and like, since people seem to actually like it, or at least it's polarizing, like people either like it or they hate it, but they don't hate it for reasons that are like very good. They're just offended because they're like a little bitch, you know what I mean? So like, you know, just like fucking people are like offended by like fucking Quentin Tarantino these days. Like, he's a racist. It's like, no, he is not. It's like, you're insane. That's the problem, you know? But there's a lot of that shit going on over here these days. It's probably because of social media and Trump, like a mixture of those two things. But
yeah, but the thing with those self-published books, you know, it's sure
too many.
So, well, too many, but like in general, too much content out there, right? And most books shouldn't be books. Like most books really shouldn't even be, right? Period. But you know, let's say a lot of books, and it applies to fiction and non-fiction, should just be like a blog post or maybe like even a tweet. You know, just the book has one good idea in it, and then you wrap it up in thousands, tens of thousands of words, because that's how books are supposed to look like, right? You're supposed to publish a book that weighs this much because it fits on a shelf nicely. So what the Amazon self-publishing allows people to do is great, in fact, because I mean, you're not limited by some sort of constraints which no longer make sense in modern world, right? They used to make sense in the paper publishing business, right? But
they were probably there for a good reason, you know, like, but these days, you know, it's completely different. It's like, I actually, you know, I do need self-publishing because like the NYC woke agents won't even look at my shit because it like says some bad words in it, even though they have like no regard for context. It's just like, just because like I wrote it in the first person doesn't mean I'm the person who thinks like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like, but they just automatically like demonize you if there's anything in there they don't like or they think is quote unquote problematic, but it's, at the same time, like there's another big problem like in American culture with just like people having too much voice, right? Like giving voice to the voiceless is not necessarily a good thing because Twitter is just a hellscape of just negativity. Like it's terrible. And like people who didn't earn a voice, right? And like they do not connect with most people because they're crazy, right? Should not necessarily they should have negative feedback about that, so they could like look at themselves and maybe like understand why other people think that way about them based on like what they spout off on Twitter, right? And it's like it's just like I say in the new book, like my little opening quote is like what Cicero said, which is times are bad, children no longer obey their parents and everyone is writing a book.
Yeah.
Which was so creepy, like because like people like historians and just various charlatans have like equated the US with like the Roman Empire, and we're seeing a lot of like the same kind of shit, just like people's ego is just like out of fucking control these days. It's just because of like social media and stuff, like, but anyways, it's got nothing to do with poker or anything.
Yeah, but and actually, like reading your book, I was thinking about like, okay, I wonder what kind of conversation did you have with a potential publisher? Because I could totally see like from the first few pages that there's no way anybody want to publish this because it's going to be, oh my God, it's too problematic. And to be honest, it would be such a bummer if it was published by somebody who considers themselves like reputable with a huge pull, and they would put you everywhere, and like the book would sell hundreds of thousands of copies or whatever, because it would be such a watered down version. Because like
I don't know
they
if
would
that's
tell you,
true.
well,
because no, go ahead and finish.
Yeah, because I think like there's so many stories that they would ask you to change. Like, oh, can you make it like a bit less of this and a bit more of that, and or do you think it's not the case? Do you think we can still, like, people can still publish sort of controversial things that polarizing things, basically? Because as you said, some people are going to absolutely love it and some people are going to be like, well, pretty much offended by it.
Well, here's the thing about art, right? And I'm going to put on my beret for this conversation, my tinfoil beret. No, it's the thing about art is that good art, interesting art, always offends like at least half the fucking population, right? That's just the way it is. Like, so if you're going to be a person who promotes art like as a business, you have to know that's true. Like, you have to know that. It's like level one thinking about like your business strategy, right? Because like, and I would think that a lot of people would like remember their past. Like, for instance, like I'll give you an example. Like, did you ever read American Psycho?
I haven't read the book, no.
Okay, so the book is so much more fucked up than the movie. I mean, it is like graphic violence on like women, right? Like, we're talking like, I won't even say the shit that's in that book because it's so fucking violent and awful. It's not all over the book, but it's like in like 5 or 6 different places when he's like killing a girl, and it's like some of the most disgusting graphic shit you'll ever read in a book, right? Like in a mainstream published book that became a movie, right? Which was directed by like a very staunch feminist, by the way, which is just, just goes to show you where we were 20 years ago versus now. Anyways, and Bret Easton Ellis is also a gay man, as is Chuck Palahniuk. But again, like, I don't think their content would be published these days. But anyways, my point was, American Psycho, right, was originally, so he had some prior success with his first book, which was Less Than Zero, right? And he was very young, and he had it was him and like two other people, and they were called the Brat Pack, Janowitz and McInerney, who wrote I don't know what the fuck is that book called? Oh yeah, Bright Lights Big City, or as I like to call it, Bright Lights Big Shitty Novel. I didn't like that one. Anyways, so American Psycho was actually rejected. Like, it was accepted and then it was rejected. And I don't remember who the publisher was. We don't have a Jamie on board, but it was either Knopf. It was either Knopf or it was Simon Schuster. One of those big five publishers rejected it after they had already just like basically pre-signed on, because he had like he had a lot of hype with his first book. And it got rejected, right? Just because they were like, this is just too much. We can't do this. It's so fucking graphic and controversial, and we're going to get eaten alive by the critics, right? Turns out, like, the people who did pick it up, I think it was like Vintage, or it was it was one of the other big five, and they were just like, you know what, we're going to do this shit. And it did. Like, it was still a controversial book. Like, if you buy it in some countries, it comes in like a little sandwich bag, because it's like almost like porn, and it's like sealed. So but that book was a fucking money machine, I mean, like, it went to the movies, made, I don't know how many millions of dollars it made, but American Psycho is like a very famous like novel or movie, just like Fight Club. Not as big, but it's millions, so that's kind of my point, is that, like, when you read something that shocks and offends you, like American Psycho it was satire, though. It was just to show like how awful these people were in New York City in the 1980s. They're just a bunch of fucking Reaganite assholes, capitalist, freaks, who were just obsessed with money and consumption, and that was kind of the point of the book. And he made it ugly to show everyone that. Right. That was the point of the fucking book. Like, putting all that graphic violence in there was to show. And there's also something really weird that happens. This isn't really a spoiler, but like, you find yourself, I mean, if you haven't read American Psycho yet, it was published in the fucking like 80s. So if you haven't read it yet, I don't give a shit about spoiling it for you. But it's like,
I haven't read it. I'm looking forward to reading it, but go ahead, spoil it.
Well, I won't like, it's like you might not have the same reaction, but like, the way he describes his friends is so odious. Like, they're just such shit people, like these rich, like New York City yuppie type people from like the 80s, like the mergers and acquisition days. They're such shitty people, but then when he goes, you hate them so much, right? You're just like, oh my God, these people are so disgusting. I have no sympathy for them whatsoever. And then he puts one of them as like one of his victims, and there's like this scene of graphic violence. You're just like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I don't hate him that much, like, so like kind of, so you kind of feel bad for them. And then it like repeats the cycle, and it's just like a really great book. It's just like the way the strategy of it, just in terms of like, just, sucking you in, is so good. But like, some people out there back then were just like, oh no, like they couldn't see past that, and like, even though like the strategy of the novel is to make a point, that like, this was a time of American culture that needs to be exposed for what it is. And it wasn't pretty, and it doesn't paint us in a good picture, but it was like, kind of true in a way, And I think like, that's what good art does. That's the whole fucking point. That's why we have artists, and like we, like, that's the nature and the motivation of every true artist, is to like, paint that. And I try to do that like a little bit with the book too. I mean, I didn't really have a whole lot of strategy with it. It was just kind of like I just started writing, and it was just like a big mishmash of shit. And I just had to like put it all together in a story. But
I wonder what's the process, like how long, if we talk about the first book that I've read, how long is the process? Like how does it look like?
So it's like Louis C.K. said, is like, I get paid millions of dollars to work 8 hours a week sometimes.
Right.
So like, I don't spend a whole lot of time writing, I do it frequently, but I'm not one of these people who like sits down and like bangs out like 10,000 words, like in a sitting. I'm really not. I have like a really shitty attention span. I'm like, one of the kids who kind of like, I was in that class, that wasn't in your same class. You know what I mean? When we were in school, like I had like a lot of like learning problems and shit. That's kind of like why I became I'm just kidding. But, I don't have like a long attention span. I'm not really like super focused, so it's, but, I see some things like a lot of just like my acumen as a writer is just like paying attention to people and just like being kind of like affected by what like stories that people tell me, and like shit you hear, shit you see.
That really came through to me. Like I specifically remember there was one beautiful moment in the book. Well, beautiful moment. Now that I'm going to tell what's the moment, people are going to say like, what beautiful moment? What the hell are you talking about?
You're going to talk about the dog?
No, it's about the dog of the homeless guy. Right?
Yeah, the homeless woman.
Yeah, the homeless guy, the thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was beautiful, right? The way you described like the depth of, just the communication with the guy and just like how it's just beautiful. I don't want to give spoilers to people because I hope they're gonna pick up your book. Now, whether they're gonna read it or not, that probably depends on how much they can take. But I'm pretty sure, like, people who are gonna go past the first chapter are gonna just run with it, like real
I think
quick.
Card players are sick fucks enough to like really enjoy it because, like, I haven't had any like card players say they were like offended by it. It's just all the fucking feminists and the fucking the people who are just like social justice warriors who are just like, you're a fucking inhuman pig, like. Those are the people who have a problem with it. Just like the people who like don't have a sense of humor, who just are triggered by every little fucking thing, don't like see the context of like the message that I'm trying to portray, that like, these are ugly things, but like but to like say that but just to mention them as something that exists is not inherently problematic. It's like, it's important that people do that. You don't just like forget like the bad things that happen and don't talk about them. You have to like expose them and put them in a context that's palatable for people. And also like, to use some humor sometimes so that they can kind of like, humor doesn't always necessarily mean like, just because something like makes other people laugh doesn't mean that it's like, that there's an ethos to it. Right. It means like they're laughing because it's sad and it's ridiculous that someone would actually do that. You know what I mean? It's like humor is not necessarily like something like when you listen to like Louis C.K., like his jokes are like really, really dark, right? But like they're funny in some way. But even though they're like the most fucked up thing you've ever heard in like live comedy, it's like, so I try to do like a little bit of that, just like to balance things out. Like one of my so my favorite writer is like Charles Bukowski, and like I'm like. People who were like accuse me of being like a broke dick Bukowski, I'm just like, well, that's what I was going for. So thank you very much. So like, and then like, I also like Cormac McCarthy, I like that like real deep, dark, gritty shit that he does. But the thing that I don't like about McCarthy is that he's just so fucking serious, like all the time. Like there isn't like a scrap of humor in any of his books. And I'm not trying to like write a comedy or anything, because it's like, that would be like genre fiction, which I don't really do. It's just like, I just like to balance like really dark things with really things that are kind of like funny, but not in a lighthearted kind of way at all. Just like, they're just ridiculous and they're dark, but they're somehow funny. I don't know. I can't really explain it. It's just like, it just comes out like a lot of it's just the strategy of framing it, which is not easy. That's the thing about like simple writing, is that like simple writing that clicks along, that like you can finish in a day. That's hard shit to do. Oh yeah. I had to change my whole strategy from when I was like younger, because I used to write like some erudite charlatan freak with like a fucking, goatee and a beret on. But I changed it all up when I realized that nobody wants to fucking read that because it's not relatable, Nobody gives a shit about your vocabulary. They want to hear like real talk, you know?
Yeah, and that book, like, I really, really liked so many aspects about it. And once again, I don't want to go into specific stories from the book because, like, I want people to discover them for themselves.
I don't think it's really plot based, though. I mean, I don't really care if you talk about it.
No, not the plot based, but you know, because I wanted to talk about like how I found, like, what I thought and how I sort of, what kind of thoughts arose from some of the stories that you mentioned. But I don't want to give that because it's like, you know, when you watch a movie and you read a book, like you have a specific already expectation about a scene that's coming up, and then it's different. Yeah. And so I don't want to influence people in that way. I'd be, you know, I'm definitely gonna write about it in my email thing that I'm doing, like a newsletter or whatever I can call it, and I'm gonna write my thoughts because I usually write my key takeaways from each episode anyway, right? And I'm gonna probably expand on also like the book and what I thought about it, and you know. Because I reckon like people who are reading the newsletter, they already probably listened to the episode beforehand, so there's going to be no spoilers.
Yeah, well, I think like it'll connect mostly with like I knew a lot like some of the players actually that like when I bounce this off players because like most poker players are like kind of obsessed with poker whether you're a winner or loser, right? It's kind of like a lifestyle thing, and you identify with it a lot, and it's like a part of your life, and I think like it's funny because like whenever I contact like winning players, they're just like, this guy's a fucking loser. I'm like, yeah, like so is everybody who you fucking make money off of, bro. It's like this is the reason you play poker though, you know? So I think it's kind of like important to like maybe like get inside the head of a fish in a way.
Yeah.
You know,
it's not only like about that, because it's like it's a loser in life. Right, because it's not only a loser, like
I mean, it's a come on. Let's be honest; those things are probably correlated in a lot of respects. You know, like somebody who's a loser, a fish in poker is a fish in life. Like me, you know, like I'm not gonna. I've made a lot of really bad decisions, and you know, it shows. And I'm not a good card player, and I probably fucking never will be. I just can't. You know, it's not that I don't understand it. It's just that like the theory versus execution part, you know, it's just like I get bored. And like, again, if you're easily bored and don't have a very good attention span, it's like, it's probably not the game for you, you know, but maybe neither is life.
Well, that's how you know,
but you know, like a lot of people who are successful, like, you know, like one thing they have is focus, you know, but whatever.
I guess depends on, you know, the walks of life, etc. Every endeavor, every profession requires a different skill set, different approach. I reckon.
Sure.
So, you know, I really, really hope people will read the book, right? Especially, you know, published by Okie Dokie. I mean, come on, gotta kind of go for it, right?
Yeah, I mean, people who like in like poker players, like it's funny. I don't have a trouble selling it to card players. So like, if you look at my Twitter handle, it says like, you know, whatever, some bullshit stuff up there, and then it says like I'll throw up some excerpts after I'm done spamming everyone. So like, you know, I've been like I just tweet at people like, hey, check out this book about underground poker in New York City, and they're just like, oh, that sounds really cool. And I'm like, really? You'll actually read this from some guy who just spam tweeted you?
Well, that's what happened right here, right? Because that's exactly what you did. And that's exactly I was like, oh, Underground Games, a book? Yes. Okay. Where do I sign up?
I didn't personalize the the tweet for you. I was like, hey, really like the podcast. Maybe check out this book. I was just like, hey, no idea who you were. Like I probably didn't even look. I'm just searching poker. I mean, it's a good place to like actually find like readers though. You know, Instagram, fucking forget about it.
Yeah.
But
that's the thing, you know, and it totally was like this, just some vanilla kind of thing that you clearly, sent to everyone, but it worked because, hey, that's a topic I want to read about, which also probably everybody's talking about Queen's Gambit nowadays, right? And how wonderful the series was. We need like a sort of thing like this for poker. Why I mean the poker players. I don't know if the general public actually want to watch that crap, right? But so many stories can be told in a beautiful way in poker because there's even just a lot of the stories which are true, live accounts of some of the people who've been around for long enough. Some of those stories are fucking crazy.
Yeah, One of a Kind is a fucking beast of a book, It's like I actually know that guy. Or I don't know Nolan, I know the other guy. Peter. Hi Peter. He might actually like listen to this. But I mean it's the thing about like, it's funny, like when you look at, so there are so many fucking terrible poker movies out there. Like, but the weird thing is that like almost everybody wants to watch movies about like gambling, right? They're just like, oh, that sounds sick. Right. And then they watch it and they're like, oh, this fucking sucks. It's just like, so there's a lot of like execution problems in the genre. It's like mob stories, like people love like gritty, like crime underworld stories, and there's a lot of shitty mob movies out there made all the time, and
what are some of your favorite mob movies though?
Mob movies, like just crime movies. I'm not a big like mafia like fan, but like crime movies, let me think. I love Scorsese. Like Scorsese, like so all of his shit is like good for me. I really like this movie that I keep coming back to that I think is really fucking good, and it's done by this guy that I never remember his name because it's like a very normal name. It's like Jesse something maybe. I don't remember his fucking name. I'm sorry, but it's this movie called Killing Them Softly. It's got like an all-star cast, and it didn't really get a whole lot of play.
Yeah, right.
Brad Pitt, James Gandolfini, fucking Ray Liotta.
Yeah,
it's such a good fucking movie, and like it's so gritty, and like the camera work is just so good. It's just like every scene is like a fucking masterpiece. It's just so good. Like there's not a boring part in the movie, and it's not like an action movie, but it's just so raw, and it's engaging. I really like that movie. I like Glenn Ross. I like those kind of like, I watched Heat again. That's a fucking good movie, man.
Heat is such a wonderful movie,
dude. But that's like a movie that like probably shouldn't have like made it like this long. Like, how like there's like certain movies that you watch like back in, like, how old are you?
I'm like 36 now.
Okay. Yeah. We're like kind of the same age. But there's movies that like you watch back in the 90s when you were like 14, you're like, that was the sickest fucking movie ever, right? And you watch it again, you're like, this is the worst. And you're just like, I'm never watching Face Off again. Sorry, it's just I've watched it twice. No, but like I don't know. I like all kinds of shit. I like I watched Barry Lyndon again. That was fucking great. Oh, what was like a really good movie that made like $0 that I thought was like a fucking, like, I didn't feel bad about my book not selling at all. Or after I found out like how much money they spent on this fucking movie and how much money it made was The Wannabe. With Patricia. Yeah. And it's based on a true story. It's so fucked up. It's kind of like, it's based on a mob. So like what happened was there was this couple from one guy was from the Bronx and one, I think they might have both been from Queens, but anyways, they're like this junkie couple that started like ripping off these mob games like in the 90s. Like they were just crazy, and they went around in their own fucking neighborhood and started ripping off protected games. Obviously. Right. And they had like a run for a while. And like, so they wrote a script about it because it's a really fucking interesting story because it actually happened. And obviously they were murdered later. But like the movie was so fucking good. I really liked it a lot. The Wannabe. Like maybe I feel like people who, if you like my book, you probably like the Wannabe. But like it's so crazy and like what an epic failure it was. I guess I shouldn't equate those two things if I'm talking about failures. It's just like it's like, yeah, nobody liked this movie. And if you like this movie, you'll really like my book. Yeah, you gotta check it out, man. But I looked up the box office numbers and I thought they were off by like, how like when you look up like a graph, it'll be like 450, but it'll actually be like 450 million, right? If you look at the asterisk, like at the footnote. But it was like $720. I was like, holy shit! Like at the box office. Oh man! But check it out, man. It's fucking really great. They actually made 2 versions of it because they like the people who liked the script like really liked it, so they tried it twice. And the one that did okay was actually like kind of shitty, I thought. But did you watch Boardwalk Empire?
No, I didn't watch that.
Okay. So. Well, there's this guy. He plays like the guy, and then Patricia Arquette plays the chick. But it's like, I thought it was really fucking good, but it just didn't do well at the box office. It sold a lot in Blu-rays, which is really bizarre. And then, and there was this movie that like, didn't make any fucking sense at all. That was about like New York City crime shit. It was called The Drop. Also with James Gandolfini.
But that was pretty well done by.
I thought it was fucking great.
Yeah, like the main character, the guy, like just like
Tom Hardy.
Yeah, what a performance! Like so good.
Yeah,
really enjoyed.
I mean, yeah, but like the whole story was just the dumbest fucking thing you could ever come up with. It was just like, oh, the dirty money in the whole city gets dropped off at this bar every night, and someone's gonna try to hit it. It's like, no, no, it doesn't. Yeah. And then there were like, and then obviously
the Russians or the Chechens or somebody.
No, they were Chechens, and I was like, dude, I know what a Chechen looks like. That's not what fucking Chechen people look like. That's like the guy was like Greek or something. I was like, what the fuck is this? Anyways, they just wanted to come up with like the scariest people they could think of, like Chechens, right? Yeah, and they I like that one, even though it didn't make any fucking sense. But it was about the style, for me. That's really what matters, because movies are about mood, and like writing is more about consciousness. I think it's what else is there? What else do I like? I'm trying to think like ones that are like, these are just some like random ones that I like forgot about that I want to see again. But like, do you ever see Jacob's Ladder? With Tim Robbins. No. Yeah, it's about this guy who like goes insane from like acid from like after he was in the war, but they were testing all these fucking people, like soldiers, with LSD, and it's like a tribute to them. It's a fucking really dark movie, but also about New York in like the 70s, I guess it was 70s or 80s. Right. Yeah, it's a good one.
That sounds good. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna look.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really read much anymore. Like I'll go back and like read some more Bukowski every once in a while. But like, there's nothing being published that I want to like. Like, I'll go to the bookstore every once in a while and I'll just be like, oh my fucking God, look at all this garbage. Like, I can just tell by the titles, like The Girl Who Could Move Shit with Her Mind. It's just like, are you fucking kidding me?
That is not a title that you've seen in a bookstore, I tell you that much.
Oh, you want to bet? You want to fucking bet? That's an actual, they blurred, they put like, whatever, like, I swear to God, that's a fucking title, bro. I swear to God. Let me find it.
Okay, let's ask.
I'm gonna
virtual
be Jamie here
to look it up. So
dude, I swear to God. Let me look it up right now. Let me see how many fucking hits it got too. The Girl Who Could Move. Yep, here it is. Synopsis. I don't even want to fucking know. Yeah, The Girl Who Could Move Shit with Her Mind.
Seriously, it's true. Yeah. Oh my God. All right. I didn't expect that to be true.
196, 80-star reviews because it was such a good book.
Yeah.
Anyways, I mean, it's just a bunch of garbage, man. It's like, and a lot of it just has to do with like people are just so politically driven these days in this country because they're, Trump obviously polarized a lot of people, and like a lot of liberals are in the arts. So like they're just taking a stand, against like anything they find. They don't want to give, they're not like really jumping up and down to like give any more white males a voice. You know what I mean? And that's the other kind of like, I don't want to say problem, but it's like, it is what it is. It's like they want more, they're making like, they're essentially putting quotas on, art, which is fucked up in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like we need more like Black women voices. It's like, okay, well, maybe make sure they're actually writing good shit too. And then, publish those things, but they're not, they're just publishing like whatever. It's like, I've flipped through some of these books. They're like unreadable. Like even some of the bestsellers, they're just like, it's ridiculous. And I'm not saying like my book's like a huge crowd pleaser, but like people won't even look at it. That's the problem. Like they won't even like I'll tell them what it's about. I'll be like, yeah, this is a book that's like based on underground gambling in New York City, which I have some experience with. Like that should just immediately be like, really? Like there's somebody who like, did this and wrote about it. Like, and it's actually like readable. Like, 'cause there's probably not too many people like who could do that, who have this kind of experience and who can actually write, so like, but you would think that would just be like immediately, like that would, just trigger like interest, but they won't even fucking.
But, for poker players, obviously, like you put two and two together, like immediately, you know what's up, when you say, oh, it's about an underground game in New York, you're like, okay, interesting. Like you say, it's somebody who doesn't know about poker or games or underground. What the hell do they know? I mean, it's just like, it's just words like, yeah, sure. Underground poker game must be.
But here's the weird thing, right? The weird thing is that all of these people are based in New York. Mm-hmm. So they should like be kind of interested about like something that's going on in their city, right? Like if I told you like, these are like, this is a story from the underground and like, I was there, like maybe check it out.
Yeah.
Anyways,
it's hard to put myself in the mind of a person who has no idea about poker. Because then it's like, because with many things, like you can say like, oh, it's about whatever. Bum's life I frame it in New York, like, yeah, I don't want to read about that.
Well, I mean,
I would
these days.
I probably wouldn't pick it up off the shelf, but if somebody who I trust recommends it to me, I will be like, oh yeah, okay, sure, that's an interesting topic. If somebody pulled it off and they're actually, it's a good read.
Yeah,
I'll
it's all about how it's written. I mean, you could come up with a really cool story that sounds good when someone explains it to you, but it could just be like, this is the worst fucking thing I've ever read in my life. It just doesn't connect on that level. Yeah. You have to know how to tell a story.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's all about how it's written once you're reading it, but for you to pick up a book, it's all about how it's sold, unfortunately. Because like to land on somebody's Kindle, it's not going to happen by magic. Speaking of crap books and Kindle, I remember a couple of years ago, I picked up, like the first time I signed up for Kindle Unlimited a few years ago now. I just went to like whatever Kindle store on the device, and there was the bestseller list for Kindle Unlimited. Sold basically books for free. And it was like, the first book was something like how I read and published a book in 1 day or 1 week or something like that. I guess in 1 week, I hope. I was like,
how they wrote one?
Yeah, he wrote and published it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Right? So I took it and I was like, okay, like, let's see. It's a number one book on the list, like thousands and hundreds of thousands of people reading it.
Right.
Man, it was like the guy was writing, okay, so it's 8 a.m. right now. for today, I plan to write 8 to 10,000 words. I better write 10,000 words, because if I write only 8, then it's going to be a bit difficult. So let me see, where can I start? Oh, you know what? While I'm writing this, that's already 5 paragraphs. So things are looking good. I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ. What is this book? Like, he's writing about how he's writing with the goal of writing 10,000 words today. Like, Jesus Christ. And that's like, but, as it starts getting pushed up and up in the rankings, I mean, more and more suckers like myself pick it up and like, okay, let's see. And then you're like, Jesus, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. No, I mean, a lot of it's like also just like you don't underestimate how many people want to get published, right?
Yeah, but I mean, please, it's just the guy's telling about his day of typing.
I mean, it's all about, my point is like the content, the selling content is all about the title. Right?
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just
All
like,
right, that's
people are just like, oh, I want to learn how to do this. I want to be, I need to get this manuscript out there somehow, because like every third bastard in America has a fucking manuscript right now.
Right. Times are bad. Children no longer obey their parents, and everybody's writing a book. Right.
True. Yep. Just before the fall of the empire.
Yeah. Yeah.
But is what it is. What are you gonna do? Oh, you want to know where the action is right now?
Yeah.
where the fucking gambling action is?
Come on.
All right. So like, I don't know if you know like what's going on in the States right now with like all this like trading shit, right? You've heard like, this company GameStop, right? Okay. Do you know what Blockbuster was back in the day?
Yeah.
They're like a video rental store, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is a game rental store. So like you go to a store that's like like a physical store, and you rent physical media and you take it home and then return it, right?
Wow.
So it's like clearly an old model, right? And like all the old shit, right, is going on to sorry, not the old shit, but like all of the gaming, like the gaming industry is moving online. Like you can just do this shit online, just like you can with Netflix, I guess. Like so anyways, long story short, there was some news like the people on Wall Street have been just shooting fish in a barrel with shorting the shit out of the stock, right? Because it's just like clearly going to zero.
Oh, that's the stock where the short squeeze happened, right?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't put 2 and 2 together. All right. Okay.
All right. So I'm gonna tell your listeners where they can get some action right now.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like gambling, right? Because I've been doing this shit and making like a fuckload of money over the last few days. And it's just the dumbest thing you're ever going to fucking hear, but it worked. And I don't know if it's going to work long term, but I've had like, this is a new thing. And it's only happened over the course of like 3 or 4 days, right? So over the last couple of weeks, they started like a bunch of people in a bunch of forums just started like pumping this essentially. They were just like, it's totally public information. So it's not really, I don't think it really constitutes insider trading or anything like that, which, is a crime here. So, but anyways, there was a stock that was basically going to zero. They were shorting the shit out of it. And like some news came around that the guy from Chewy, which is a online pet store, like very successful, was going to take over GameStop and like try to like redo their model so that they could like maybe survive as a company. I don't know anything about any of these, like the company or like what its prospects are, anything like that. All I know is that all over the news, there was the short squeeze, right? The short squeeze. And like, so I get this article from Bloomberg and I'm like reading about how they're operating, right? And like, there was this, they're like, okay, so like there was and they showed another one that was like another no-name penny stock that's not worth anything. Like the company's garbage. Like they haven't posted anything to the SEC in like 2 years, right? So these guys, like 3 guys, or I don't even know if they're connected. They're probably not, but like a bunch of, it's kind of like Twitter. There's this, I'll tell you about the app in a minute. There's an app like Twitter, right? That's for like the finance people, but it's clearly full of a bunch of fucking lemmings, right? And it's hilarious. You got to get on and just check out the content. It's so funny. But anyways, so like Bloomberg is telling, writing the story about like these three guys. They started like, hey, everybody get on board with this one. We're going to do this one next. And the stock goes up like 450% or something like that, crazy. And it's like not a real company. It's like a penny stock that hasn't even filed anything for the last few years. But it's just a giant collective pump and dump scheme. And then what they're doing is they're now targeting companies that are subject to short sales. Like they're just kind of like on a short list. Like everybody knows they're being shorted by Wall Street. And the reason they're targeting these companies is the market cap is so low, right? And so like I saw kind of like the antithesis to this today, because everybody was trying to pump BlackBerry, right? And BlackBerry is kind of like a fucking, if you think about it as a phone, it's like antiquated technology, right? But they actually have like a lot of infrastructure for like cybersecurity, and they work with Amazon and all kinds of shit. So they're actually they have a $10 billion market cap, right? So, and I'm not a stock guy. I don't know. I don't even really know what the fuck market cap means, right? It's just like the value of a company as far as I know. Okay. I have no training in this at all, ever done it. So anyway, so if you try to short squeeze BlackBerry, right? It's got a $10 billion market cap. So it's actually going to take a lot of fucking volume to make that stock go up, even if a ton, thousands and hundreds of thousands of people are betting on it, right? So that one only went up 20% today, right? But some of these other ones, Express, that shitty clothing company that's like a B-grade designer clothing company, Fossil Watches, the shitty watch company that's just really kind of they sell cheap watches. And Nokia is another one, right? So here's how it works, right? This is how I made collectively, I made 100. So AMC was last night. That's the movie. They don't have any theaters open. Right. This that's the theater company. That was their next target. They're like AMC is going to be the new GameStop. And there's just shitloads of people tweeting about it. They're not really tweets. I just call them tweets. I don't know what the fuck they would call them, but it's basically Twitter for it's kind of they kind of copy it. But anyway, everybody's tweeting their asses off about AMC. My friend and I buy it last night, early in the daytime, because we see it's trending on this stupid fucking app, right? And so we were just all right, let's give it a shot. I'm no stranger to risky bad decisions, so I'm just let me throw a couple dimes at this bitch, let's see what happens, right? Failing movie company, just like that, but it just like GameStop, but it's it's everybody's talking about it, they're targeting it, right? So it moves 60% after hours. I can't even trade the fucking thing. So I wake up this morning, and I haven't woken up before noon in 20 years, right? So I wake up this morning and I've made 120%. I was holy shit, right? So are you allowed to trade American stocks where you are?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. All right. Just try it. I'm not saying throw your fucking bankroll at it, but just or just do it for for fun, with the play money or whatever, right? So you get on this is how it works. This is so ridiculous, man. It's but I made I doubled my roll today, and I didn't even risk it all. And it wasn't a very big roll to begin with, because I was a little bit worried about losing, so I didn't throw a lot of money at it. But in terms of percentage, I had BlackBerry, which was the lowest one, made 20%. That was the lowest one I did. And then I didn't lose. I only lost 4 or 5% on two of these other companies. I have no fucking idea what they were. But I just got in too late. Right. So I got this all from this Bloomberg article that was showing me how these people are just pumping all these stocks. Right. So it's called Stock Twits.
Okay. Stock Twits. That's imaginative.
Yeah, Stock Twits. Okay. And you go to Stock Twits, right? And then you go to under streams in the bottom center tab, you go to trending, right? And then what I did was I came up with this sick algorithm, right? I just looked at all of the, so what they do is they say like all these people like have their opinions about all these stocks. And whenever I see like, AMC was mentioned like 100 times in the last hour, or 1,000 times in the last hour, I'd make like tick marks, right? Because then you just know that all these people are going to be buying this shit the next day, right? So I wake up in the morning, and then like I go to what's trending, and I click on like, I don't know, like this one is GME, right? Whatever. And I just look to see how fast the tweets are. So when you click on it, it gives you the graph, right? And then you look to see how fast the tweets are coming in, right? And it's all just a bunch of fucking like total, like I don't want to call them morons, but it's just a bunch of guys who have no fucking idea how to like, they don't have any like, they're buying garbage companies that are like don't even exist basically. And they're just like if you see them coming in at like 1 second, like less than a second, like everybody's tweeting the stock, like I just jumped on those. Like I would just see it trending. I would see that like when you clicked on it, like the messages were just kept like reloading like every single second from like people just tweeting about it. And then I would jump in, and then like 60% later, I would just get the fuck out.
Right.
But I mean, this is not like a way you should be like, this is not like, I can guarantee like if you ask some kind of like Wall Street guy, just like, you're a fucking idiot, dude. Just like, yeah, well, whatever. But like, it's crazy. Like there's, if you want to know where the fish cakes are, like, I don't know if there's a way to exploit this other than just jumping on board with them at the right time, because usually it goes the other way around. Somebody makes like, like the masses do something, and then like Wall Street exploits that, right, in the opposite direction, like when there's an IPO or something like that. You know what I mean? But
yeah,
I was just
guess
like,
with a small market cap, the pump is much easier. And by the way, if we are keeping this for those people who need me saying this is not an investment advice.
Nor should you do this.
Yes.
Like whenever someone tells you where the action is,
don't do it with your own money. Right?
Yeah.
But if you do, then it's your own business. But it's not like, don't send us the lawyers our way.
Yeah, I mean, when a guy who's made like really bad decisions in his life tells you where the action is, that's not investment advice. Okay, I'm just telling you where the action is. Okay.
I'm sure some people were actually like already on stock twits and like, okay, so what is he saying? Oh, okay, so yeah, refresh the 1 minute. Okay. Well, so hold your horses. I mean, still do it if you want it, but it's not our problem, right? But just like think twice about it. At least take a deep breath and like think about the decisions.
Yeah, well, you could also just not put this in if you want to. I don't care.
I don't know. It's like it's gonna weed out the weak, because we might be putting it out like 3 weeks from now or something like that. So maybe by that time, it's like just like the worst advice.
Yes. Just like with like the weed stocks back in the day, like everybody was left holding bags of shit pretty much and just getting nickeled and dimed all the way down. Yeah, no, I mean, that's what's going to happen to GameStop eventually, I would think. I mean, it's a fucking failing company. Like and they made it go from like $6 to like $250 or whatever it is. But like, I didn't even buy that one because I thought it was too late, but all these hilarious motherfuckers like all over this app are just like, we're like, it's like they're it's almost like the mob taking over like some kind of thing. It's hilarious. So like, we're gonna go for AMC next, everyone. Let's go.
Yeah. I can just imagine, that like a setting like in a Wolf of Wall Street where they're all sitting in this like cramped room, like everybody's next to each other,
I mean,
like, having a proper party every evening, like, we're gonna go for this. And now it's just moved on Twitter. So in a way, it's pathetic because a bunch of guys just, going crazy, sitting in their underwear at home, like, we're pumping this. Yeah, okay. Well.
No, I mean, it's really weird. It's like something that's only happened over the last couple of days. And it's like, it's all over the news actually right now. Like here, people are just like, is there is there such thing as too much democracy when it comes to markets? Like,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna keep trying because it's like it's so easy. I did like an hour and a half of research and just jumped on, made like 170, 50, 60% on like a bunch of different shit. I had no idea what I was buying. I didn't have time to look it up. I was just like, oh my God, look how many people are tweeting this fast about this. You just got to make sure that it says it's just like, everybody get the fuck out, you got to like look at the content a little bit, you know what I mean? But it's just like, cause you don't want to go in the opposite direction if everybody's like saying, let's get the fuck out now. It's over. Yeah. But it's so funny. It's almost like collective, like open forum insider trading though. It's so funny.
Yeah.
It's just like it's like literally like a mob.
Well, it's basically like collusion, right? Because it's a collusion of,
it's totally collusion. Yeah. But I don't think it's technically illegal because you're just saying like what you bought, right? And if you know that everyone else is going to buy it, if you say it, it's just like, I mean, if
it was on the corporate level, I think it's against the law. Like if a bunch of companies meet up for breakfast and like, we're going to be pumping this. No, you won't. You're going to be pumping something else somewhere else.
Yeah. Right.
But it's a crazy world. Fucking internet, man. I mean, it changed everything.
Game changer.
I mean, look at us, right? You're in New York. I'm in Malta. We're having this conversation.
Right.
It's that alone is insane. But what it does to society and all the things is just
it's like no, it's so funny though. You should just check it out. Just like go like tomorrow if you're like, I don't know what time it would be, but like 9 a.m. Our time, right? Just like go to the trending thing and just
it's real nice for me because it's like 3 p.m. or something like that. I think
it's nice.
6 hour difference. So
just try just watch it. Just watch like just pick like 5 stocks that like these freaks are just like jumping all over and just watch it go up 60%. It's so funny. Like I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I missed like 5 of them today just because I was like too busy watching the other ones, like the ones that I bought like a baby with a whooping cough, I'm just like making sure I didn't like lose, like one of them like went up to like 80%. It was this company called Naked Brands or some shit. No idea what it is. I just bought it because it was just like it was on fire. Like people were just like, and I got in like after it popped like 20%, thinking it might be too late. Nope. 20% doesn't mean shit to these people. They're just like, let's go. They're taking penny stocks and like some of this shit, the content on this, like it's going to $100. It's so funny. It's just like, oh my God. Anyways, it's at least entertaining. Like you can get like just like listening to like some of these people give investment advice. It's just like, I hate selling. I'm long on everything. I'm so bullish right now. And it's just like, and they're just constantly taunting like all the people who are short. They're like, fuck you, bear, you piece of shit. Your dick is short, just like some of the shit they say is fucking hilarious. It's really entertaining just to like see all these people like gambling their faces off on penny stocks and like winning. And like, I don't know how much longer it's going to happen, but
it's funny, if you look back throughout, like as far as we can basically look back, it's the same shit happening over and over again, different schemes, different people, different places, but the same crap all the time. Like at some point somebody gets,
it's always a bubble.
Yeah. Somebody gets like a genius idea, the next big thing, and then everybody gets super excited and like, let's go for this. The greed drives progress in a way.
Yeah, it is weird. Yeah, it's true.
But also like just because like I imagined that situation of all these people being so pumped on Twitter lookalike kind of thing, right? Instead of actually sitting on the floor room somewhere, because it used to have some romance to it. Like it looked like, oh yeah, everybody's fucking crazy. Everybody's on coke in that, room on the floor. And
they've at least got their ties on.
Yeah. At least in the
like
morning, anyway.
Yeah, like in the Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
And they go meet at a bar somewhere and they just get fucked up till 4 a.m. and do it all over again. Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for showing up,
Yeah.
But
there's also something to be said about showing up too late. Right? That's not good either.
Definitely.
Yeah.
My friend's like an actual trader, and he's like, he told me to like last night, right before anybody started saying this shit. And he's like, so he actually has like a day job, but it's only in the summertime. So he day trades during the winter, and I have no idea what the shit he's talking about with puts and spreads. I'm like, whatever, man. But anyways, he's like, I was telling him about this. And I was like, I just sent him this article, and he's like, he's looking through his short list, and like, I didn't know there was some short list, right? And he's like that everybody's targeting on Wall Street because like he's all over the channels, and like, like he follows like the most successful traders on the planet and whatnot. And he's like, yeah, you might as well throw AMC in there. And he's like, this is before any of this shit happened, right? He's like, this is a failing movie theater that is not open, and it's just like being shorted, like, to zero pretty much. Mm-hmm. He's like, you might as well put that on your list. And like, sure enough, I was like, and I started seeing it like at like 4 p.m. And I was like, you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to I'm going to try this out. Cause I just started seeing it trend on the thing. And I was like, and I wake up and it's up 120%. I was just like, holy shit. I was like, this is fucking stupid. Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, everybody knows this company's going out of business. Oh, there was another one that was so funny. It was like another one that was on their so I was looking up this this company that they were all talking about. It's called I don't know. It was like this Chinese coffee company.
Be L shit, man.
Yeah, seriously.
It probably is an L shit.
So I see this trending, right? I see it trending like on the app, and I go to look up because I just use my phone for like to see what the recent graphs are. Because I know like I can kind of tell like some signals that are just like bad. It's like, okay, it's kind of too late for this one, right? Mm-hmm. It's like even if like it's like they've been pumping this thing for like 3 weeks now, it's going to crash any moment. So I look it up, and like under like when you look up like on Apple, like the stock, it'll like have all the latest news stories, and it's like such and such coffee company will pay out $180 million for its accounting fraud.
Wow.
And it's just like, go. Like, it's just so funny. Like, they're just like, they're purposefully buying, like shit stocks to just, I don't know if like part of it's to actually just make a mockery of the whole system. It's just like, oh, you want to short, if the big boys want to short this stuff, we're all going to get together and we're going to mob a stock, and just to show you that none of this really matters. It's like, I mean, I'm probably thinking way too much into it, but anyways, it's try it out though. Just watch it. It's like, it's unbelievable. And it's not going to last forever. Cause like what my friend said, he's like, well, this is just like what happened with the weed stocks back, like, right. 10 years ago or whatever. He's like, what happens in these situations? He's like, it's great. Actually, the most recent one was with altcoins, because he's like a big Bitcoin trader, mm-hmm. and he just understands that market very well. And like, he's like, when I made like all that money off of like altcoins back like a few years ago, it's like, that was just basically like when Bitcoin was going, like when Bitcoin first popped, like everybody was trying to get to do the new Bitcoin, right? Mm-hmm. So they started making all these altcoins, and none of them were ever going to be the next Bitcoin, right? But people would buy them anyway, just because like some people could mine them really quickly, and they wanted to get like they wanted to accumulate as many as they can, just in case, like what happened with Bitcoin. Remember when they were worth like a penny or some shit, and then like people who had like so many thousands of them were now like fucking multimillionaires, right? So they're trying to do that. So like everybody started mining all these like altcoins, and some of them would just like be worth several dollars like for a few days. And he was doing all this because he was just like all over the chat forums, and like I don't know what the fuck he did, but like he made a lot of money like on altcoins, right? Mm-hmm. Same situation though. Once all the altcoins crashed, and this is this theory about what's going to happen with this market. So this is another thing for your listeners or your listeners to realize, something that he said that resonated with me, even though I am like gambling on this like fucking madman right now. That when GameStop crashes, right, all of the people who are doing this are going to lose confidence in any future bets. So right now they're all winning, right? Mm. But as soon as they get halved in one day, you know, I'm sure you're familiar with that term. Yeah. Right.
I'm pretty sure everybody's, most people anyway.
Right. So like when they get halved, it's like, that's when the party's basically over, and it's right around the corner, probably, you know, because like all the people, because there's still people buying fucking GameStop right now. Let me see what it's at right now. It's like the last one, when I read the article, it was like GameStop GME, man, let's go. Oh my God, it's $347. 2 weeks ago it was $6. Like, what the fuck? So they're still at it.
Yeah.
And at this point it's national news, right? So you get a lot of people coming in late right now, you know, like there's that wave of people that are coming. So like this won't be a thing. You know, I really don't think it will be a thing like 3 weeks from now, just because, you know, as soon as like all the big the big ones that made the news start shitting the bed, like that's, you know, party's over.
Ties up real nice with your story about buying a house and the peak of the boom, right? Just before the recession.
You like how previous behavior dictates future behavior, right?
Yeah, well, that is one thing, but also just, you know, the same shit happening over and over again, like, you know, the little schemes that, you know, the early adapters or whatever you want to call them,
right?
You know, they get it right, and then, you know, and
I mean,
wave of people get it right as well, and then there's like a big bummer for a huge amount of people.
It's like a pyramid
there's going to be
scheme.
so many crazies who are just going to be like, oh my God, yeah, this is the 100% scheme. Of course. Yeah. Let's put everything on it. Right. Oh, please just don't.
Well, it's the thing. It's like, that's the thing about pyramid schemes, right? It is a scam, but for the people who are at the top, they make money, right? It's just like, it actually does work. Like if you can get in on a pyramid scheme in the early phases, you're fucking golden. Like in the ground, you know, what's actually the top floor, but you know, like that's and some of them are not really like scams. They're just like, it's just a business model, I guess. I don't think there's anything inherently illegal about a pyramid scheme. I'm not sure about that though. Not that it would matter.
I don't know.
But
I don't even know why I'm thinking about it so hard, because I'm like, no, I think it's all fine.
Yeah,
right?
well, you're a guy who who makes decisions, correct decisions, and wins. You know, it's your role in life.
Right. Well, anyway, man, you know what? It was so much fun. You know, I was really looking forward to this conversation. Like the whole thing, how it started. You know, I already mentioned to people like how you reached out. Or reached out sounds grand. You just spammed
I spammed your ass. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was like, okay, fantastic. I love the topic. I'm gonna read the book.
Spamming works, everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're the proof of that. And I loved the book. I'm you know, a couple chapters in the first one. So far it's awesome. I'm looking forward to basically, I'm looking forward to finishing it. And I really hope that people are gonna go and get it. Really, I mean, it's so easy. Just go on Amazon, get it on your Kindle, any mobile device.
If you just Google "We Run Bad," it'll come up. There's like tons of reviews, and I got like a Kirkus review and whatnot, which is.
And you know, at some point, like. Imagine it would be stupid to say now that, if you're easily offended, don't buy the book, because people who are easily offended, they
Yeah,
probably
they
didn't
should go
get
fuck
this far in
themselves.
the conversation, right? So we're safe on that front, I guess. So whoever is
If,
left, go get the book. You're gonna love it. I'm pretty sure that actually, if you listen to the whole conversation, you're gonna love the book. So go ahead and get it. Anyway, thanks for making the time, and it's really, really cool to have this conversation with you.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. I had a great time.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Check out the description, and of course, I'd highly appreciate if you subscribe, click like, spread the word about the podcast. Also, if you'd like to receive a regular newsletter with my key takeaways about each episode, go ahead and subscribe to it on runchukspodcast.com. That's RUNCHUKS podcast.com. I write those myself, I take it seriously, and I really enjoy the interaction with the readers, so I hope you'll sign up, and I'll be back for you next time. Thank you.